Ow. You'd think I'd stop doing that by now. Man, your bow's all messed up. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. Yeah. You little wiggle waggle. You little happy? So happy. I love you. I love you. I'm such a good boy. Oof. Thank you, Ben. You've been watching this? It's still live? I haven't, wanted to wait to watch it on the stream. So I feel like it's bad form to... I guess at that level, it probably doesn't matter. Well, I wanted to wait to watch it on stream, so... if they're still talking, we're gonna be quite a bit behind.
Like a double.
Oh, hold on.
My big lips. Doing plastic surgery to get lips like mine.
Is a specialized...
Stand by.
There we go.
Stand by. Just
Spoilers.
a moment here.
I hope that to some extent, this means that, like, we're gonna see Dylan, because I know, one of the people who worked with Dylan, you know, I suggested for them to reach out to H3 via, like, Olivia, so hopefully we'll see him on at some point, because I think that would be great. He specifically said in the earlier part of this podcast that he wanted to have alternatives to this on, and I feel like this is a great option. Or these are obviously great options, talking with Loner. It seems like I saw some of the chat just because I had it up paused. I wasn't watching it, but I had it up paused, and I was seeing the chat go by, and it seems pretty positive, so. Solid! Loner deserves to have a bigger platform. He's a great content creator.
Okay, getting connected.
You've lost.
I don't think so.
How?
In fact, I know so.
I feel like Loner is like one of the more like level-headed approaches to it.
What you eating, love?
Some taco.
Taco spot?
Oh.
More of
The
so bust.
I don't know. People love, by the way.
Kebab is shaved.
I mean, the biggest thing is that, like, that I know about, like, the issue is that, or issues surrounding it is that, like, people get really mad about the fact that he doesn't want to call it a genocide, but that's just, like, really hyper technically specific. I don't really feel like it's that big of a deal to, like, get mad at him over.
At least how they do it in my hometown. And it kind of reminds me of it a little bit.
You
So it
like
feels...
shaved meat.
Yeah, especially pork. Shaved pork.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Oh, shit. Went too far.
Hi. Mr. Lonerbox, hello.
Hello, Mr. H3.
I can see you. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yeah, I hear you and see you. Actually, you're a bit quiet. Let me turn you up.
Excuse me. Thanks for calling in. I know it's super late. What time is it there right now?
Oh, it's only 11. And
Oh,
I'm a
that's
bit
not
of a
bad.
night owl, so I'll manage it.
And you're in Scotland, right?
Mm-hmm.
So are you a native to Scotland? I'm unaware of your background. I know you're Lebanese by background, but I don't know. Did you move to Scotland, or were you
What's up
born
next?
there?
Okay,
No,
Alec,
my family's
you're the
Lebanese. I was
first
born in
VIP
Scotland.
member
My
that has
my
joined.
dad's side of the family is Lebanese. My mom's side is Scottish. So I've lived
As long as he doesn't have a wrong hot take, Alex are always right.
here almost all my life.
Oh,
Lived in
okay.
the Emirates for a little while. Been to Lebanon a couple of times, but mostly Scottish. Yeah.
So the
Colby?
reason I wanted to talk to you is just because I've been talking a lot about Hassan and people like him, and how I don't agree with their brand of like leftism. I myself am a liberal and a leftist, and I think in an effort to be more productive in this conversation, it'd be good to introduce people to somebody on the left that I do think is great, and that I do think people could watch and enjoy and get
Sorry, I use this as a reference from when I'm building my
some
Minecraft.
political analysis from. So that's kind of like the motivation for having you on, and yeah.
And he can't have Destiny on.
So you were looking for a Hassan alter? It's a lot of pressure, but okay.
Not a, yeah, no, it's a full-on Hassan alternative. You are tapping in and coming into the ring. No,
He needs his token replacement Middle Eastern. I'm just kidding.
I think you have a good perspective. I mean, where do you come from? You're definitely a left-leaning guy, but I feel like on certain topics where people go super far left, you have a more like nuanced and thoughtful take.
Yeah, so I've been pretty much on the left since I started caring about politics, barring like a small, like 14 playing World of Warcraft and listening to crazy like right-wingers online. That was maybe my one phase, but it lasted like a few months. And then after that, I've basically always been on the left.
Same,
It was
basically.
definitely a lot more farther left when I was younger. And then I think since I started making content about 4 years ago, kind of two things happened at once. One was I noticed that what I
All of
understood to
those.
be like the 21st century
I mean,
version.
I agree with you, homonyms, with the Vosh stuff, but I don't really feel like... I don't know, I guess I don't really know where you're coming from on the all of this. The Hassan hate, I guess. I mean, I was on the... getting annoyed with a lot of Hassan's takes like literally like over a year and a half ago. So... I don't know.
Of like a socialist or a democratic socialist.
Sorry.
Things happened at once. One was I noticed that what I understood to be like the 21st century version of like a socialist or a democratic socialist was very different to what a lot of other people online saw as socialism. I kind of thought the whole USSR simping and anti-democracy and anti like liberal values was just a thing of the past. But
Harnax, either you're talking about something I have no idea, or I think you just did it. You might have your fingers on the wrong keys. I've done that before. Hope he spits on bread too. Oh, creators and their audio. Yeah, I think you just had your fingers on the wrong. Okay, I translated it.
That happened. So I kind of realized that there was this whole tanky authoritarian sphere that I didn't identify with at all. And then I also
Good, Ethan's
realized
dying
that
over here.
just after doing more and more reading into particular topics, because I was actually creating rather than just watching other creators, I realized that
That's all
I
good,
didn't
Tariff.
always align with exactly the same conclusions. So I think the first example was Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
What I would normally do in my 20s was I would just, if I wanted to know something, I'd see there's an issue and I'd say, okay, what's the left-wing commentators saying about that? And I would tend to just go with that and trust it. But when Ukraine happened, I decided that, well, I'm a creator now. I should probably just dive into this myself and see where it gets me. And I realized fairly quickly after reading more and more about that conflict and the history and what was going on now, that I didn't align with the far left position on it at all, really. That all this talk about we're going to hand-wring about the Azov battalion, like a group of like 1,000 or 2,000 people at most, some of whom
The
were
so-called
Nazis.
Maki doesn't like the Azov battalion either.
Nazis,
and like
yeah.
yeah and this is why we have to like this, and that's the level of purity testing that we're going to do to let a country of like tens of millions of people not get the arms that they need to defend themselves. I thought that was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or conspiracy theories about a US backed coup in
Yeah.
2014 in the Euromaidan. So I very quickly realized that there was this whole pile of things that I didn't really identify with coming from voices that I trusted. And then from then on, I've come across that maybe a bit more often. Still lean pretty far left compared to the average person, at least in the UK or America. Like I definitely align with social democratic policies. I like workplace democracy. I think governments should support more of that. But yeah, definitely a little bit different from what I understood the left to be online. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of went through the same thing that people saw here is that I didn't really understand what, like, I thought socialist, when I heard that, I didn't really think like, oh, communism, like Marxism. I thought like social democracy, like Bernie Sanders. But when I started talking about like communism with Hassan, and then
Like
right
20,
afterwards, October
25
7th
years.
happened,
It was one of the first
I
ish
started to
years.
like realize that this, like, in my opinion, this like left.
Well, he hasn't changed his opinion on Ukraine. No?
Shit was so fucking nasty, and I felt like I had to get away from it. Like it was just scared me. Like what the fuck? It was crazy.
Well, I've been watching it from a distance, you know, like I think there have been definitely a few periods where I've just became like an H3 Hassan, whatever React channel. Cause it's,
Yeah.
I think like, cause I tend to like to go into deep dives about certain topics, but then I also realized that watching other channels talk about things like that and hearing disagreements is like a good way to springboard to get those conversations going. But yeah, and it's difficult to assess proportionally because in the real world, people who lean that far left to a point where you've got like authoritarians and tankies
Yeah.
or Hamas
Right.
supporters, like there's not that much of that outside.
Right.
But I guess because they don't have that much political power, they have invested a lot of effort into getting a very strong presence on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
Well, yeah, I saw like recently Hassan was like at least friendly with Loner, and I think a few months ago, it's not like that recently, he was like, yeah, I guess Lonerbox sucks now, and it's just like, oh my god.
bleeding into normie spaces as well, which
Which is, you know, it's kind of like the association thing. March of 2023. Hey, I'm a Loner simp. I don't watch all of his content. Obviously, because it's a lot more like live stream mostly, and I don't really have a lot of time to do that. But everything I see from him has always got pretty level-headed takes. Yeah, I don't know if he's been off the rails recently, but plugged his Israel-Palestine video this year. Yeah, but didn't he like recently, like when he was talking to that other guy, he was like saying, "Oh, he sucks now." Intellectually and morally bad. Yeah, well, he was also like, he now is like a fan of Bad and Panada. Like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know what Hassan's on about.
which is a little bit more bothersome because they might not get the votes, but like that's where an increasing number of people are getting their information from.
Right.
More young people get their information from the internet.
What? Figure it out. Figure it out. She did it. I didn't close the door all the way. So there was this like tiny little bit of the door open, and Naki's like trying her hardest. She figured it out, but to open the door. It was really funny. Sorry.
An increasing number of people are getting their information from.
Tankies are the worst.
More young people get their information from the internet, and that's going to keep on going up and up. That's not going away.
Right.
And obviously that's the space I operate in, so kind of have to address it, and even if it feels a bit disproportionate at times.
So when I hear you talk about like Israel, Palestine, or Ukraine, I feel like you have like a really deep understanding of things. I'm curious what your research or like academic background is on this stuff.
I have no academic. So I got a degree in sociology,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was in about 2012, 13. And then I completely,
Oh yeah, he's like my age, right? Or wait, no, if you got a degree in 20, he must be older than me. Because I graduated high school in 2011.
switched it and just spent the rest of the
I mean, close enough.
decade doing music, like music production, teaching, performance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always had a kind of like secondary interest in politics. Like I would read a lot, or I would just watch podcasts, or listen to commentators. And then eventually, after creating, I started reading more. So most of it is just like,
Well, he's also in Scotland. Maybe their like university system is a little bit different in the timeline. I'm just going off of U.S. schooling, so we might be the same age, but he might have gone to school early or something. I don't know.
if I ever look like I'm really well learned in a particular issue, it's usually when I was making video essays or streaming. It's usually just because I spent the week
It's
before
third
reading
grade.
as much
Oh yeah, so he's literally like a year and change older than me.
as I could about it. So it's all just like one thing at a time, you know?
One video you made recently that really like
Brag about a chicken.
resonated with me is you were talking about like how left-wing anti-Semitism is manifesting right now, which is obviously something that I've been talking about and caring a lot about. I find it's really hard to explain it because there's so many levels and there's so many different like ways to obfuscate. And I think a lot of people who are behaving in anti-Semitic ways don't necessarily even think that they are. And you explained it in a way that really I thought was good. And I was wondering if you, kind of what your take is on the whole left-wing anti-Semitism. Like, where's it coming from? How's it manifest?
Yeah, I mean, I hope I remember what I said because that honestly to me is just one of the most difficult questions to navigate because people don't talk about
Manifesting is not what
anti-Semitism
Ethan
all that
thinks it is.
much.
I don't know. I'm conflicted on that because I'm wanting to be very charitable to Ethan on that, but I do feel like he might be going a little farther than I would. But I agree with you that I do think that like left-wing anti-Semitism is like definitely becoming a thing, and I think it's like far left-wing, you know, like and it's becoming like really oddly normalized because. And I do think Hassan is a lot of the reason. I don't necessarily think that he is like a raging anti-Semite himself. I just don't think that he gives a shit enough to like not like he doesn't put enough care into it.
A lot of even Western countries that have very good education systems and where every other year in high school or even primary school, they ask you about, like, they teach you about the Holocaust and World War II and all that. But even then, there's so much that gets buried. Like in the UK, for example, like no one knows that the British basically purged the Jews like 2 or 3 times across the last 1,500 years. We learn all about the Scottish versus the English in Bannockburn. But we don't learn that Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots, the guy who fought with the Scots, he was also the Hammer of the Jews. He borrowed a bunch of money from Jews and then didn't want to pay them back because he had fought the war with the Scots. So he just deported them all. He just purged them and they weren't allowed back until like 500 years later. So, but that's just something that never gets brought up. And then even to this day, the UK still has a fairly low Jewish population, Scotland even lower. When it comes to left-wing anti-Semitism, it's like, it's really hard to navigate because I don't think the majority of people who appear
Wait, you
to
want me to speed it up? I don't know. I'm kind of fine with this so far.
be doing anti-Semitic things.
You already
who are
watched
on
part of
the
this, all right?
left
I
are
didn't.
doing it out of any conscious dislike of Jews.
Right.
Like none at all. I think that it doesn't cut like, in a right winger, it's obvious. Right wingers don't trust Jews. Like right wing anti-Semites think Jews control the world, run
Right.
the banks, have a secret plan to destroy the world.
Dan
But
Bilzerian
for
shit.
left wingers, it's a lot more opaque, and I think their issue is more that they arrive at anti-Semitic conclusions and anti-Semitic sentiments completely by accident. So okay, I'm trying to think of how to explain this in a quick way, but the way I think it works, and I'm still kind of mulling this over time. I think since the Cold War ended, I think a lot of like revolutionary communists or tankies or whatever ended up kind of lost. They didn't really have a story anymore because the big bastion of anti-capitalism was gone, right? So once that was done, I think people felt like they were in a position where, okay, well, we're not going to get global communism anytime soon. Like the great superpower war is done. But what we can support is anything that kind of threatens the global capitalist order.
Hmm.
I think like in Chairman Mao's little red book, I think he literally says anything that is good for the enemy is bad for us, and anything that's bad for the enemy is good for us, which seems really irrational. But it's not that irrational by their own logic, because you ever heard like sort of like communists say things like, oh, every time there was an attempted revolution around the world, it was squashed by the West.
Every
right?
time, yeah.
Containment, yeah. And to an extent that did happen. Like that was US policy, it was
Right.
containment, stop it spreading at all costs.
Right.
So it makes sense to think that if the only way that communism is going to have a chance of flourishing again is if the global capitalist order is like pushed out of the way. So anything that undermines that gives a bit of space for alternatives. And this has been kind of like part of their doctrine for the last 100 years. Even in Weimar Germany, like the German Communist Party, their number one enemy was not the Nazis, it was the Social Democrats. They called the Social Democrats social fascists. They basically, at certain points, actually aligned with Nazis on particular issues to try and get the Social Democrats.
Weren't the communists like the first ones to get fucked though? Like purged in Nazi Germany. I assume he's gonna get into that.
Dislodged from power. When it happened when the Nazis took over in 1933, the party line from the Communist Party backed by the Soviets was that, like, basically this is good that the illusion of liberal democracy and social democracy is out of the way, and this Nazi thing is just a kind of blip, and then after that the workers are going to rise to class consciousness and we'll have a revolution like a Soviet Germany. So they maintained that line up until the mid-30s when they were getting killed.
Right. So how does that lead into anti-Semitism, where they're like, it's basically an anti-Western philosophy?
Well, now that you're far left, and if you're far left and you don't really have much of a story after the Cold War, then Israel-Palestine as a far leftist kind of gives you everything you want in a story, right? It gives you oppressors and oppressed. It gives you European settlers versus non-white natives. It gives you East versus West. It doesn't give you capitalism versus communism, but it does give you the great capitalist powers versus something else. So it's a big focal point for a lot of things that leftists care a lot about. And when you can, and for a lot of very complicated reasons, people get fairly disproportionately obsessed with that particular issue. And if the goal is like, if we see that Israel and America are kind of like representatives of the global capitalist Western order, then sometimes people who don't really have that much else to support in the world in terms of communism or anti-Westernism is they'll find themselves eventually accidentally falling into supporting groups that oppose Israel, even if they are some of the most rabid anti-Semites in the world, like the IRGC or the Houthis or Hezbollah. And I think that's more or less what happens. I think they hate Israel because Israel is backed by the West, and
America
if
bad.
that means tolerating the anti-Semitism of Houthis, Hezbollah, etc., that's kind of just worth it. And if it also means occasionally repeating their propaganda points or whitewashing their anti-Semitism, then so be it.
That makes sense, because like when I look at these people on the left, like I know that they're not like they're not racist and hateful people, but it's so hard to like explain it, because like you said, it's almost incidental. It's like accidental. And
America is bad, but I don't think everything
yeah,
America
I think the
does.
way you said that makes a lot of sense. That the other thing I've noticed about these like ultra lefty guys that kind of trips me out is how much they hate liberals. Like they hate liberals more.
That's what. To be fair, there is a legitimate reason to hate a lot of liberal ideology, or because there is a lot of flaws relating to the fact that, and it's something that I can't do anything about, like the way that like I think, but I have this, and I've noticed this is an issue with myself. I don't know how to deal with this, but I assume people play by the rules. And like that is really like a very liberal, I don't know how to I don't know how to not think that, I guess, but like that is like probably my most like liberal philosophies. I believe in like institutions, and I believe in like the fact that we were playing by the rules, and that's something I gotta get over.
More than anybody.
Well, yeah. Also, liberals are really fucking. Well, if you're talking about like liberal, like I don't know, the Nancy Pelosi types, I guess. Like those people are obnoxious, but I just think like the ideology in itself.
Out is how much they hate liberals. Like they hate liberals more than anybody. Like they think liberals are fascists and essentially no better than like fringe right wing, radical elements in the government. And I always thought that was so crazy because I love liberal democracy. I think it's fucking awesome. You know what I mean? And when I hear these people talk, it seems like the personal freedoms that we enjoy, religion, even the freedom to have your to.
I feel like they gotta define their terms here.
Control what happens in your own workspace, right? Or speech, press, all this stuff is stuff that they don't necessarily even believe in. In fact, a lot of that stuff is probably something that would need to go under state control for the communist takeover to work. Seems like.
Yeah, it's hard to always get into their heads because I can say that I used to enable a lot of, like I used to attract a very authoritarian, like far left community, but I never really went that far myself, even back in the day. So it's like, I think in a sense there is an internal logic to it in a way, because again, like liberal democracy is what, or social democracy essentially is what saved capitalism, right? Like that's what they'll say about Roosevelt or about the New Deal or the welfare state in Europe or the beverage. Like the idea of those things is that they allowed capitalism to survive and to basically gain the consent of the people. And although you could argue that, well, if it also results in raised living standards or anything else, then that could give people the breathing space to start thinking about alternatives for society.
Right.
I guess they just don't really, they don't really buy that. That part of it I find a little bit harder to explain because, again, it's like it's always people who enjoy all the benefits of liberal democracy, right? Like you couldn't be. There is no Chinese version of Hassan, right? They can't exist because
Right.
you couldn't say like. You could, I don't know what the Chinese equivalent of America Reserve 9/11 would be, but if you said something.
China deserved the famine? I don't know.
Like that to the Chinese, or
That was good.
you couldn't be. There is no Chinese version of Hassan, right? They can't exist because you couldn't say like. You could, I don't know what the Chinese equivalent of America Reserve 9/11 would be, but if you said something like that to the Chinese, or like they deserve maybe like one of the Uyghur bombings or something, like you'd find yourself in jail long before you get the chance to escape in your like sports car or whatever, right? You'd be, yeah. So that part,
like,
yeah, I have a really difficult time.
I've noticed too, like people like Hassan who, or I mean, not him specifically, but it's like, it feels like sometimes like this disease that festers inside, and it uses like its own structure to defeat it, and because of liberal values, it's hard for the society to even make the distinction of like, how do we disallow this? Because like we're all about the freedoms, and they're exploiting the freedoms to undermine the society we live in, and it seems somewhat like a paradox that I'm not really sure where that ends up.
I mean, that's always been one of the strengths of like a liberal democracy, though, or especially social democracy, is that it is good at hosting its own critics,
Downfall.
more so than any other or like a regime.
Right.
And I think for the most part, that's probably okay. I guess we are entering into a new phase where social media and disinformation and post-truth and everything is really hard to control, and the fact that like. But unfortunately, I think that side of things is probably getting a lot more weaponized right now by the American right? Like with Elon Musk buying Twitter and then using it to amplify things that he likes and to purge things that he doesn't like, and doing it with Russian money, like the fact that it's like all these conspiracy theories that you would normally hear right wingers make about the Democrats, for example.
Dude, yeah, that trips me out. Elon is literally like straight up George Soros. Like everything they thought George Soros was, he's like, that's who I am. Here I am. I'm fucking doing
isn't
everything.
there like
we
a
said.
video of him saying that? They're like, oh, if we had George Soros on the right, which again, George Soros just kind of like puts money like everywhere. So it's like the George Soros connections, like generally speaking, are true just because not that there's like some weird cabal thing. It's just that he just has money everywhere because it's kind of what you do when you're a billionaire. But he's like, I remember seeing this video. I don't know if anyone can find it, but like, there's a video of he's at like a dinner at Mar-a-Lago, and then somebody says something about like, I wish we had a right-wing George Soros, and then Elon's like, oh, that's me. It's very cringe, which is why it's funny, and I would like to show it, but I don't really want to spend the time to look for it right now.
That he was doing, and everyone's like,
yeah, exactly, KB.
That's awesome. We love Elon.
And they're proud of it as well, right? They're like, there was that clip, wasn't there, when they were saying, "Oh, who is?"
I didn't pre-watch this. I promise. I was listening to my audiobook earlier. I wanted to wait till I watched this on stream.
Right-wing George Soros, and Elon Musk is just like, yeah, that's me.
Oh, yeah,
and then they clapped. I thought we didn't like it when people did that. Yeah.
It's kind of mind-bending, yeah. Going back to like the Middle East, one thing that drives me crazy is the admiration that you see from Western leftists for organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah. And another comparison that I always see that I feel like is not very fair, and maybe you can tell me if you agree, is the comparison to like Nelson Mandela and the ANC when they go like, oh yeah, well, Hamas flew in and killed a bunch of civilians, but that's what Nelson Mandela did too. And now
what did Nelson Mandela like specifically like was like against like what was the thing with they like tie a tire to their necks or whatever, like wasn't that like a specifically like or was it like his wife that was against it and he was, I don't remember the whole thing. I'm sure I'll get into it.
They used to be called terrorists, but now they're actually freedom fighters that we love. It seems like not an honest comparison.
It's interesting how people who accuse everyone else of being Orientalist are so quick to generalize oppressed people from very different circumstances who did very different things and basically made very different decisions. If you're comparing Mandela to Hamas or Mandela to Hezbollah because they're both labeled terrorists by some people. I'm sorry, saying that, oh, well, Mandela was labeled a terrorist. Well, okay, ISIS were labeled terrorists. So would you say that? Like we'd say, oh, ISIS were labeled terrorists. Well, so was Mandela. So big deal. Well, no, some people can be incorrectly labeled terrorists and some people can be correctly labeled terrorists. Mandela, in his own words, was completely against what people would mostly describe as terrorism. When he was actually arrested.
Oh, his wife was doing it, and then he was against. Right.
Time.
Well, yeah, MLK was like incredibly unpopular. Obviously, he was like a socialist.
When he was on trial, I think in the mid-60s, after the ANC had resorted to a level of violence, now what type of violence matters, he explained his position very clearly. He said, well, we tried to go on strike. They made it illegal. We had our party, the ANC, they banned it. So we had, even though striking was illegal, we held protests anyway. We held protests that we weren't allowed to do just to see what would happen or to see if we could like make a good impression. And peaceful protesters were massacred at like Sharpeville. So they decided that they had to pursue something else. They had to go underground. But even then, in his own words, they chose between different kinds of resistance, different kinds of violence. You could go for a revolution, you could pursue terrorism, you could do guerrilla warfare, you could target soldiers. But the option that Mandela chose was what he called sabotage. It was to attack government infrastructure like power plants or to interfere with the railways or the telephone communications or to pull down pylons, because the whole idea was that the goal was to make this system, the apartheid system of South Africa, ungovernable. It is not sustainable. And we, with our, because the black people were the majority in South Africa, the large majority, if we do this, then you're going to be forced to concede, because otherwise the state's going to collapse. And he specifically said that he chose to do that because sabotage did not involve loss of life. That's his exact words. He also said that it offered the best hope for future race relations because bitterness would be kept to a minimum. These are his exact words.
One of his things that he said that I feel like is always overlooked is that I know that he wanted to avoid violence as much as possible because he knew it would make reunification like difficult or impossible, and that's like there's like a empathy there, or like not even an empathy, but like just pragmatic perspective where it makes sense, where I feel like people just give Hamas and Hezbollah a blank check to just fucking, kill and mayhem civilians, and it's just all in the name of resistance. Like there's never, there's no criticism for them because they're the oppressed.
I mean, you can kill babies and call it resistance. Like it doesn't. You have to actually. If you're ever gonna, I don't like it when people say, "Oh, I oppose all political violence," because the world is a pretty nasty place, and there are some times when the only way that people can defend themselves or liberate themselves or achieve their rights is through violence. That's happened in history with colonialism or with apartheid or anything else. But just explain how it'll help. Just say, how will this act lead from A to B? Mandela was able to do that. I think he persuaded people very well on that. And when things did go overboard, when the ANC militants would occasionally, either by accident or because some people just went rogue, when they did kill civilians, they sometimes took a bit longer than others, but they effectively disowned it. They didn't like that. Or people might think necklacing. Do you know what necklacing is?
I forget the exact.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
The exact description.
Like the tire around their neck.
It's when you take a tire, because for some reason in South Africa there are lots of tires lying around. I don't know why. They would take a tire and put it around someone's chest and shoulders. They would soak it in gasoline and then set them on fire. This was seen as like an ANC practice. But even that, most of the time that happened, it was used on other black people who were suspected of being informants. And although Mandela's wife, Winnie, supported it and spoke openly about it, the ANC hierarchy, the leaders, they actually reprimanded her for it. They distanced themselves from it because they knew it looked horrible.
I knew the parts of that.
It was just like violence for its own sake. It didn't really help anyone. So if you're going to talk about resistance, it's like, no, you don't get a magic word to just say, oh, well, that's resistance and therefore it's fine. Just explain how this will help. How did October 7th help Palestinians? How does suicide bombing help them? How does Hezbollah firing rockets that you can't aim into an area of northern Israel that's full of mixed communities? How does that help anyone? How does boarding a ship that's going from Turkey to India, that's full of people from Asia and Ukraine, and kidnapping them for a year? We still don't know where they are, by the way. How does that help Palestinians? Well, the fact is it doesn't, but you call it resistance and you make a propaganda video with music and people like it. Yeah, it's stupid.
I know what they would say is that it brought awareness. Like before October 7th, people were not thinking about Gaza and not caring about Gaza. But after October 7th, now it became like this global movement and dialogue about it.
That's great. 40,000 Palestinians at least, by the way, it's probably more, much more, have died. But
I don't really have much to say. I feel like I'm just kind of watching this.
Relatives who survived and are walking around the rubble, that you've got global attention. Israel-Palestine has an insane amount of attention from the international community. They've got, the last thing that they need is more attention, right? What they need is something that will actually work, or that will actually lead them to get their rights. So even October 7th, like if October 7th had happened in the West Bank, honestly, okay, I'm exaggerating, but I don't think I would care as much. I don't think I would be like...
No, dude.
Yeah. Can I interrupt for a sec before we move on from Mandela? It was my understanding that initially Mandela was adaptive of the Gandhi philosophy of nonviolence, but he saw it wasn't getting anywhere with him. And then ultimately he felt that violent resistance was the only way to combat the apartheid. Am I?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but it depends on what kind of violence, right? They did resolve to violence, but their violence was damaging, destroying government infrastructure. Occasionally, people did die, but that wasn't their policy. They weren't trying to kill people. They were
Right.
trying to disrupt the system and make it like an impossible system to maintain.
Yeah, because like violence comes in a lot of different forms, right? Like, you know, you could say like violence against infrastructure, or like taking out infrastructure is a form of violence, but it's again what he's saying, where it's the toll, and like it's not necessarily like directly related to like a policy of, you know, taking human life. So, you get it?
I think between the 70s and the 80s, I think 76 and 84, I think only 71 people died in MK operations. The goal wasn't to kill people. The goal was to frustrate the apartheid system.
Mhm.
So obviously, yeah,
71
violence is a
people.
broad term.
You said 71 people died in what? In what time frame?
Between 76 to 84, about 8 years
That's
of
wow.
confrontations.
Yeah, I mean that really puts it in perspective, in my opinion. Whenever people make that comparison, it's like, well,
Well, I just don't think it was particularly relevant to the conversation so far.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of saying like, if we're talking about violence for the Palestine, there'd obviously be a difference between armed militants in the West Bank destroying an outpost, right? Or even if like a settler tries to go up and set up an outpost, like the idea of like a Palestinian armed militant going up to them with a gun and saying, no, fuck off, like go back to your own country, okay? Like that's because that's the only way they can enforce that. I'm like, okay, yeah, good, do it. Yeah, that I'd completely support that kind of behavior, but that's not what Hamas does. Hamas went into Israel proper and killed whoever, right? So
I totally agree. On the West Bank, like these people are, when you talk about like colonial settlers and stuff, like that's what's actually happening in the West Bank right now. And these people are like, I mean, more or less valid military targets, in my opinion, right? But in Israel proper, as you
Fair
describe
enough,
it,
USM.
what would you say? Because I think a lot of these activists would say, well, actually, Israel's all stolen land. So what's the difference between the West Bank and like around Gaza, the kibbutzim around Gaza?
for to hear Americans say that, like, okay, so you would actually be fine if a Native American decided, okay, it's time, we're taking it back. We won't actually take it back. We know we won't take it back, but what we could do is we can just kill as many Americans as possible before the army comes in. Like, okay, if you concede to that, and then it doesn't make any sense. Like the idea of Israel being stolen, that's where you get into a bit of a difficult territory there. When it comes to Israel being stolen land, that when people talk about colonialism and Zionism, and maybe like farther left people don't really see eye to eye with me on this at all. I think when people try to make these comparisons, I don't think it's very helpful to compare Israel, like Israeli colonialism, which I think is real. I don't think it's worth comparing it to something like to Algeria under France or British-run Kenya, because the difference is that a colony is like a place that is controlled by a mother state that that has the colony there on its behalf with the goal of plundering the land and exploiting the locals. That's the goal, right? Jewish people, in large part, didn't go to historic Palestine because they wanted to like enslave locals and plunder the land. What is there to plunder in Israel Palestine? They went there because they felt like they had gone through 2,000 years of persecution in Europe. The Middle East was a bit better, but not great. And they decided that the only way that we can actually ensure some level of safety for the Jews is to have our own state, where we exist as a majority, where we can't be persecuted by another majority. And most Jews disagreed in Europe. They thought that if we become more integrated, if we get rid of a lot of our obvious Jewishness, we'll be a bit more safe and we'll just become like regular Germans or French people. They were wrong. The Jews in Germany who watched the Nazis come to power and had all their property taken away from them, some of them killed, some of them put into camps, they were more integrated at that point than they'd ever been. That was a very well integrated German Jewish community, and they were murdered for it. So I think if if there had been no anti-Semitism in Europe and the Middle East in the 19th century, Zionism would have been a really stupid idea. It would have been a complete, like, there'd have been no reason for it. It would have been completely unjustified. That's my opinion. But because that wasn't the case, and because you're dealing here with people who don't have anywhere else to go, who don't know anywhere else, who are not going back to Poland or Brooklyn or Iraq or Libya or Yemen, well, they're there to stay. And the way I see it now with Israel-Palestine is, although the foundation of Israel was built on, I'd say, at the very least problematic terms, pretty unethical actions, sometimes downright atrocities like the 48 War, those people are not going anywhere.
That is my exact take too. Thank you. They're already there. You know, it's like, yeah, people get wrapped up so much in the history of it. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of issues with that, but those people are there. They're born, they live there. They have no other place to go. Like, I 100% agree with this. On the take being like, yeah, it's fucking shitty that that's how it ended up. But we got to talk about what's happening now.
There are two national groups who live in that area. And we know that they don't really want to share power. They don't want to share a country. So at that point, you need to say that, well, you can't just reverse histories to some ideal point,
right?
Just to some Goldilocks zone in a particular year. You have to deal with what we're given now. And what we're given now is two national groups in this land. I think the most logical thing to go from there is to separate them. One person gets their country, the others get theirs. Maybe one day they'll decide that they want to coexist in a binational state or whatever Western leftists like to talk about when they're drinking coffee. But that's not today. Palestinians need a state now. I think that's what makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of my issue with this whole conversation is like, even saying like, oh, I'm in favor of a two-state. Like, I feel like to Hassan and his community is like genocidal. Like that makes you a Zionist, right? And again, not even from like a nationalistic, Zionistic perspective, just from a pragmatic point of view, to look at that situation and say, I think we can like lift the blockade and let everybody in Gaza and the West Bank have free reign to go into Israel and basically just, you know, fully integrated from one day, just lights are on, the borders are gone, full integration. Pragmatically, that seems like a total disaster. I mean, that would be like, I mean, all the governing bodies in those areas are pretty much dedicated to violence against the Israelis, and it would just, I think it'd be crazy, right? I mean, it would be fucking mad to do that. Seems to me.
Well, even with apartheid, like the way apartheid ended in South Africa was because at the end of the day, both groups were eventually persuaded into it. Obviously, the ANC, Mandela, offered that. He said that they wanted white people to have a future in South Africa. They considered race relations going ahead. You know, Desmond Tutu, the Rainbow Nation, it was supposed to be. And the white population...
I'm going to start not telling you guys when I'm going to stream, and I'm going to fuck up your spree. I'm just kidding.
Eventually have a future in South Africa. They considered race relations going ahead. You know, Desmond Tutu, the Rainbow Nation, it was supposed to be.
Right.
And the white population were eventually persuaded into it as well, which is why I think just before apartheid ended, there was a referendum. And the white people were asked, do you want to keep negotiating with the ANC or not? And they mostly voted yes. So you can't just dissolve the border and just expect everything else, all else equal, to stay the same.
Right.
At that point, you're just turning a war into a civil war. So,
Right.
And I think this bears out in the polling as well. It's like there was a poll very recently that asked Israelis and Palestinians the question: do you think the other side wants to get rid of you, either to kill you or kick you out of the land? And I think 90% of both groups said yes. I think it was like slightly more Israelis than Palestinians, but it was about 90% each. Yeah, there is a lot of distrust between these two groups. So the idea that, and I think even if you look at polling on the one state for two people versus two states, or there was one poll that actually also inserted a third option, which was one state, but an unequal state without without equal rights. And the order of preference for both groups was 2 states first, then 1 state that's unequal and undemocratic, and then the last option was 1 state for 2 people. So
yeah, I find that that's the ironic part is like all these people who are talking about 1 state's the only solution. It's funny because the people who live there, none of them want 1 state. None of them. The Palestinians and the Israelis, nobody there wants 1 state. It's like because they understand that it's not a viable option. It's like a non-starter of a conversation. It just seems like magical thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it necessarily has to be that way forever, but again, Palestinians they need a state now. They don't need to wait 20 years before people start to absorb the same like multicultural opinions that we have in the West, right?
So how do you make a Palestinian state with like the way that the government is now, how they're like constantly absorbing land from the West Bank and kind of just looking the other way, or in some cases just greenlighting settlers to steal what is essentially Palestinian land?
That's a pretty big question. I think the international community and the support for Palestinians should be pointed a lot more in that direction. I think there were efforts not even that long ago that involved like boycotting of products that came from the settlements. I think it was like it eventually, not too long ago, led to European companies just refusing to stock any produce that came from settlements. And it resulted in expansion at least slowing down in some areas. And people said that, yeah, this is actually hurting our enterprise. So obviously, more of that is a good thing. I think governments, I think it was a really good thing that Biden started putting sanctions on settlers and I think even maybe 1 or 2 settlements themselves, like the outposts. I think that kind of pressure is a really good thing. And I think I really wish that a lot of the activism was maybe pointed more in that direction, because to me, it's a much more black and white thing. I don't think anyone can defend settlers. I went to Israel and Palestine in the summer and interviewed people from both groups. The most frustrating conversations I ever had there was not with Palestinians who sympathized with resistance or anything like that. Like the frustrating conversations that came from settlers, because
again, keep in mind, settlers, when we were saying settlers, a lot of them are American, like, fuckers that just come over, like, who are not born and raised in Israel. They're literally, like, people from other countries that just have, like, a Jewish heritage. And that's why they're kind of a completely different, in a way, category, I guess, than like just like random Israeli people. Like motherfuckers from like Brooklyn or whatever.
One hand, they would do this thing where they would say, yeah, we're here because Israel's a small country and we need to expand our frontiers so it's harder for people to attack us, right? Like if we weren't here, the terrorists would be closer to Tel Aviv, right? It's a small country and all that kind of thing. But they'd also talk about how this is historic Jewish land. This is Joseph's tomb and Rachel's and the tomb of the patriarchs. And I would try to ask this question where I would say, like, okay, if the security issue was not a problem, would you give up this land for peace? And they wouldn't answer, like, they would kind of skirt around the question. And I felt like such an idiot. I tried like 3 times to rephrase this question because I thought they just weren't understanding what I was trying to say. And they just still wouldn't answer. And it's, yeah, because, yeah, they're expansionists. They just want territory. They don't care about the security. It's just something that is easier to sell to the rest of the world. So I think there's a lot that needs to change with regards to policy from Israel's allies. And I think settlements is a really big thing. I don't think it's the end of the world in terms of 2 states. I don't think land swapping was really the big issue in the peace process. I think the issues were more fundamental than that.
I mean, say with Christians, to be fair, if we're talking about Holy Land and all of that, it's a fucking mess. Because a lot of the religious texts are mixed together. It's not like we're in the age of like video, all that's just a fucking mess.
But there are still, people, Israeli leftists, who don't have any support behind the scenes talking about ways that you can fix the maps up to make this work. And Yeah, I just think there needs to be a lot more pressure in that direction. And I think same with Palestinian leadership as well. I think if Palestinian resistance was about frustrating the settler enterprise compared to what Hamas is doing, then that would be a much more amazing thing.
That's a good point. Well, are they doing anything to the settlers? Is that even like a focal point for like Hamas?
Um, sometimes, so yeah, there are lots of confrontations. The problem is that they tend to go for settlers, and at least in part because they can't get to Israel. I think in was it August? I think it was August this year, the end of the month. There was an IDF raid into Jenin, like a big Hamas stronghold in the West Bank, and so stupid how these narratives get kind of like spun in the West. But I think the IDF went in there and they crossed quite a few lines. They bulldozed the roads and they caused quite a bit of destruction. But I don't think anyone. I watched a bunch of left wing channels talking about this and Al Jazeera and the rest of it. I don't think a single one of them mentioned that I think 11 people died in the first day of those raids. But I don't think a single outlet mentioned that every single one of those people who died was claimed by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and the Al Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, like fighters, every single one of them on their own websites. And they even said that what they were doing was they were building explosives to use either on settler communities or on Israelis, because it happened just like a week after or 2 weeks after a botched suiciding attempt by Hamas and Islamic Jihad. They tried one in Tel Aviv and it failed. So, yeah, again, that's always been an issue. I think is like I don't really know if there's ever been like an armed resistance sort of agreement on the Palestinian side to kind of like focus on particular targets rather than others. It seems to be like they'll go for Israelis in Israel proper. They'll go for settlements that are right on the border that are probably never going to go back.
Wait, are you serious, Chicken? Can you link an article? Dude, this country is so cooked. I run to the bathroom one sec. I literally just saw it on my phone. While I was going to the bathroom. Mexico, Canada, and China. Oh my god. We're so cooked. It's mullet! I'm sorry, how much of our produce do we get from Mexico? We gotta get, yeah, I mean, as long as you don't want to eat like any like fresh fruit, I guess. More than 88% of, oh wait, I wanted that the opposite way. 88% of Mexico's horticultural exports are destined for the US. I want the opposite of that. I want to see how much of our agricultural imports. Press count for. That's not what I'm looking for, motherfucker. How much food do we import from other countries? Let's just go with that. Maybe I'm looking for a graph that shows like something like this. Trade flows of tomatoes from Mexico and the US is 31% of the global share. Why is this so big? It's really hard to read when it's like that. Dominate the import. Canada and Mexico dominate for imported agriculture goods to the US. Yeah, so you know how they're saying all of our food is too expensive? Well, let's make it more. We're so cooked, dude. The big thing is we don't have a lot of farms that are making like a lot of different produce because we have like crazy like corn subsidies. So most of our like large farms in the US don't necessarily make the majority of our like our actual eating food. It's like stuff for feeding livestock and you know, corn and shit. God, we're so cooked. Oh yeah, of course we export too, but like, you know, let's be isolation. It's a really good idea. Like an immense amount. Oh yeah, insane. No, this is insane. It's gonna literally ruin our economy. I mean, again, we'll just hold on to the fact that they're too incompetent that they never do. Oh, this article is really short. This came up on my phone. President-elect Donald Trump pledges that soon after taking office, he will slap steep tariffs on Mexico, Canada, two of America's closest allies, as well as China. The clearest indication since his election victory that he plans to follow through on the tough campaign rhetoric that helped propel him to the White House. Posting on his Truth Social platform, Trump said that on the first day of his presidency, he will charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the U.S., which again, you can't charge them tariffs. That just charges American companies. He added in a separate social media post that he would impose an additional 10% tariffs on all products that, again, tariffs are not, it's not like it benefits anyone besides, or it doesn't, the countries don't pay more. The US pays more. Whoever is importing it. That would come on top of existing tariffs the U.S. has already imposed on Chinese goods. Quote, these tariffs will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Trump wrote, referencing his proposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Yeah, we gotta stop having these fucking Canadians there. Let's deport Jordan Peterson. Let's deport Steven Crowder. Let's deport Drake. And I might have Canadians I can think of off the top of my head. Justin Bieber will likely doing so will likely upend the trade agreement that Trump negotiated with the two neighboring countries in his first term, known as USMCA, U.S. Goods and Services Trade. U.S. goods and services traded utilizing that trade agreement totaled an estimate of 1.8 trillion in 2022, according to the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, which oversees the U.S. trade agreements. Yikes. You're on that bandwagon too, chicken? You and Razor are very adamant that he wants to invade Mexico. I mean, it's not off the table. We're going for some crazy times, dude. Ugh. No, he doesn't, chicken. What do you mean? He had that one Taco Tuesday picture where he was eating like a taco bowl at Trump Tower. What do you mean? I gotta leave this state, dude. The problem is my two options are border states. I guess my three options are border states. One of them would be with Canada. But, what's the most middle state? Like, Ohio? I'm a coastal elitist, okay? Just trying to think of the most middle state. All right, I'm going to Kansas. We'll be safe from both. Yeah, Kansas or Nebraska. We'll be safe from both sides. We'll have this line: Nevada, Utah, Kansas line. Woo! Ohio is definitely mid, yeah. I mean, I still think California will be fun. Because, you know, if this really pops off, California can literally just secede and be economically fine.
Or they'll go for
Anyways,
a particular target.
let's get back to this.
Rather than others. It seems to be like they'll go for Israelis in Israel proper. They'll go for settlements that are right on the border that are probably never going to go back, or they'll go for outposters, which I think are a lot more justified. But yeah, I don't think there's ever been like a really focused
So if you're
attack
living,
on one group. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what your opinion is. If you're living in Gaza and you were born there, and obviously we all know that the conditions even before the war were pretty tough there, like 50% unemployment, like tons of poverty, and no freedom of movement. So like, I guess what you know, I think a lot of people say, well, if they can't go and fucking, you know, start blowing up shit in Israel, what can they do?
It's kind of like, I don't even know what an analogy is, but it's like if you're suffering, I don't think you're not going to gain more from blowing up things in Israel, are you? Like, you don't really gain anything from that. You actually lose quite a lot, because look at Gaza now. There was a Hamas leader, actually, alongside Sheikh Yassin, the founder, in the early 2000s. And there was a really interesting quote from him where he basically said, let's be frank, we're not going to destroy Israel. The practical solution would be for us to have a state alongside Israel. And when we build a Palestinian state, we will not need militias. The needs for attack will stop and things will change into a civil life. There is this very small fringe of Palestinian advocates, including they've existed in Hamas as well, where they think that one thing that Palestinians don't lack, at least before October 7th, was international humanitarian aid. They are one of the largest, if not the largest, recipients per head of humanitarian aid in the world. And in Palestinian groups, there's always these leaders who basically no one knows about or no one likes, is that they have this argument that they should use that aid and use whatever resources they have to build up themselves as much as they can, so that if we can't force Israel or Netanyahu or Sharon to negotiate with us. What we can do is build a de facto state reality on the ground that will eventually kind of, in the same way that Israel did, just be like, yeah, we're here and we're not moving. And maybe if we develop ourselves up, we can engage in trade and we can push for things like that. But obviously, if your resort to Israel is to just fire
No, who are you offending? I guess your own sensibilities.
at civilians with rockets that can't aim, or to go across the border and kidnap people or go across the border and murder people, well, it's like you're going to get blockaded. You're going to get them coming to you and blowing up your military installations and attacking your soldiers. And unfortunately, if those soldiers are near civilians, civilians die as well. So
Do you think that happens on both sides? Do you think that happens from the IDF as well?
do I think
Where
what happens from
civilians
the
get
idea?
innocent civilians get killed?
In what sense from the idea? Like,
Because I'm hearing you talk about it a lot on from Hamas coming into Israel and doing that, but I'm not hearing the other way. I was just curious.
oh, what, like the IDF killing Palestinian civilians?
Yeah.
Yeah, the IDF is like in some ways, like the IDF they are, I guess, a professional state army, but they're also, they're the last people you would want to be running around Gaza looking for soldiers, okay? Because even if Hamas does fight in a very cowardly way, like they hide in civilian buildings and under civilian buildings, they dress up as civilians. The IDF is an army full of like 19, 20, 21-year-olds, right? These are like, like bedwetters, okay? These are people who are scared, they're jumpy, they're hateful.
That's what I said too
Well, 'cause
about the
obviously the
fact that
Israeli
like a lot of the issues is that like, of course, like when people say like Israel doesn't do like horrible or the IDF doesn't do horrible shit, it's like, yeah, of course they do, because it's a bunch of like people who have no idea what the fuck they're doing.
Right wing. They're very angry about October 7th. And unfortunately, the IDF doesn't really have a very good system of accountability, right? I think the longest I've ever seen an IDF soldier getting jail time for murdering a Palestinian, I think it was like 3 years, maybe 4. And that's since the founding of Israel. So obviously, people who are on the ground who, maybe want to take a bit of revenge and all that, might just, take a bit of liberties and just kill some people who they know don't need to be killed, are not soldiers. So yeah, that's.
Hold on, I just had a thought regarding the tariffs. You should just buy shit now that like it's gonna go up in price like crazy. My mom just sent, I texted her about that, and then she said, have room for supplies now? Anything you need yet for the wedding? Oh, my mom made the same joke. Too bad we can't stock up on avocados. We're having like a weird COVID thing happening. All right, I'm going on Amazon. What's the most like thing that we get from Mexico? Hold on. Let's see what, hold on. Mexican imports. Whoa! Doxing the city I live in. Imports. Total. What am I like? What is the wording I'm looking for here? Mexican import total. Wait. Largest imports from Mexico. Largest. Imported goods from Mexico. Okay, well, motor vehicles. I don't think we're gonna stock up on that, but motor vehicle parts. So yeah, our cars are gonna get significantly more expensive now. Computer equipment, shit. What type of computer equipment? Oil and gas, nice. Electrical equipment, nice. Plastics, vehicles, iron and steel, mineral. Okay. Literally just like the entirety of our economy. Aluminum, organic chemicals. Again, aluminum, we don't have the idea of like having tariffs that like you would make it in-house, but like we don't have like all of this. Literally, it's gonna ruin our economy. This is insane. Not do any personal search. Well, the thing is, it is for a PC. It's just on Google. I can't make it not. It's like a general thing. It's not like got my address in it. It's like a GPS thing I can't turn off. For those. I mean, it doesn't really matter. People know where I live. I live in Austin. It's like a suburb out of Austin, but like whatever. There's something I could do about it. I actually have a completely different account for it, all that type of stuff. The only way I could have it not do that is if I was on a VPN, which I don't feel like setting up. The tacos! We'll see more of like, largest imported from Mexico. Let's see, I mean, like, there's something I can do with that, but like actual like products, maybe like actually direct products. No, I'm getting the same thing. Oil. That's so stupid. I thought we wanted more, Oh, beer? We gotta buy a shit ton of beer. Medical, I thought this is musical instruments. Gems and precious metals. What product is, oh, not import the most. Historical data. Imports to Mexico, so we want to, wait, what? Oh, yeah, this is what they import into Mexico. I want the other one. There we go. Yeah, computers, cars, insulated wires, video displays. Oh no! I gotta buy a new fucking graphics card or something. Broadcasting equipment, engine parts, low voltage, electrical transformers, electric motors, integrated circuits, electric controls, centrifuges, other electronic machinery, gas turbine. Damn, Mexico's got all of the stuff, huh? Refrigerators! Excavation machinery, transmissions, semiconductor telephones, air conditioners, air pumps, Yo, we're so cooked on all this. Everything's just gonna get so much worse. Valves? That's like everything. As soon as possible, you couldn't do a better job on the tariffs against Chinese import. Well, yeah. I mean, literally, Favos, my like conspiracy theory is that this is all like Russian backed because they want our country to collapse. Yeah, but you know, Kamala's like a Marxist or whatever. So, you know. Delivery trucks, motor vehicle parts, trailers, tractors. This fucks over literally everybody. Recreational boats? You'd think the conservatives would be pretty pissed about that. Oh, it's like so stupid. Crude petroleum, which again, my mom just texted drill baby drill. Refined copper, plastic lids, phosphoric acid. Okay, we're getting a little hard liquor. No, we gotta stock up. All right, guys, you gotta get your hard liquor now. Go to your local store or go on your app of choice. Get your fucking tequila now because that's just gonna dry up. It's gonna be a whole like thing. Fruit juice, baked goods, confectionery sugar, raw sugar, gold, other furniture, non-knit men's suits, window dressing, medical instruments, utility measures, X-ray, other vegetables. Oh my god. We're so fucked. They export 76% is exporting to us. So that means obviously not 76% of our goods are this doesn't really work the other way. Wait, whatever this website is, I feel like the most effective way would be look at the US and then go from there. See how cooked we are. Let's go back to this. Okay. Imports. Oh, great. Our top 3 biggest ones, China, Canada, and Mexico. Let's just make everything more expensive for us. Love that. Yeah, our cars are gonna go crazy. Oh, fuck. Razor and I were gonna buy a car in like 2 years from now. Okay, I gotta talk to him about that. Well, I'm gonna send a picture of this to my mom. I think maybe I'm just not gonna have a family. Because the fuck. Yeah, this is insanely fucked. Also, like, Canada, like, other shit we get from Canada? Refined petroleum. Not knit sweaters! The import, the $15.9 billion industry of knit sweaters. Why are there so many knit sweaters? Non-knit women's suits, 13 point. Oh my god. Beauty products, everything. Vaccines, blood, anti-serotoxins and cultures. We import blood? I guess it's not that crazy. Essential oils. No, not my essential oils. Oh my god, cars. We're so fucked. Tractors too? Like, your monitors? I don't understand how that they're going to be able to do this. It's really going to piss off like the people who make their money off of all of this, because again, they're the ones that are going to be that are going to be hit the hardest. Obviously, they're going to pass it off to the consumer, but like generally speaking, I don't think they're happy about it. Why are we letting this happen? Because we can't do anything about it, bitch. The voters spoke. They chose destruction of our country. I didn't vote for it. What do you want me to do? It's gonna hurt everything. It's gonna hurt every single country in the world. Yeah, our country fucking voted for it. So, take the L, idiots. That's what I'm telling you. This is the end of the country. The world's gonna end in like 2 generations, and this is not helping. Or I would generally say 3, but you know, it's getting a little closer. Yeah, can we do it like a little bit of a mulligan? Maybe re-roll it? You're gonna try and enjoy December as much as possible, yeah. Woo! Hey, there's not we can do our January 6th, you know? We can also do a January 6th, I guess. we'd probably be better at it. I don't know who us is, just the people who disagree with this, I guess. This is literally America last policy. I love how they always like, you can just say whatever nowadays, right? Like, we're post-facts, right? This is America first, and let's make the majority of our trade relationships over 50%, right? Wait, do quick math there. Sorry, almost 50%. Let's just completely cuck that and make it all of those things that is almost 50% of everything we have more expensive for everybody. The last Christmas of this world, it might be the end of global nuclear war. Also mass deporting. Yeah, can you imagine how much that's gonna cost? Like, what the fuck? It's literally like trying to ruin this country in the most comical way possible. Well, that's what happened last time, right, chicken? The camps were a little bit too expensive, so we just started killing them. Or by we, I just mean like the human population, I mean the US. It's a lot cheaper to just murder people. My mom sent me this image, but I had to like download it. What the fuck? I don't think... What? God, we're so cooked. Speaking of another place that's cooked, I don't know, Israel, Palestine.
So we're on the ground who, maybe want to take a bit of revenge and all that, might just, take a bit of liberties and just kill some people who they know don't need to be killed, are not soldiers. So yeah, that's
what scares me about this conflict overall, and I'm not coming at you. I don't know your content. This is the first I've heard of you, but I'm just saying overall, as this movement, at least from the Palestinian side, I think we should be able to talk about it more. I agree with Ethan that people are too reactionary sometimes, and that we need to have realistic standards as a starting point. But from the Palestinian point, like, I've never heard, at least to my knowledge, I don't know shit about politics, but I've never heard of another movement who can't have a slogan. So my whole life, I'm Lebanese, I'm Muslim. I've always heard river to the sea. I've never understood it as a phrase that meant eliminate Israel. Now, when I heard that people take it that way, when I heard from Jewish people that they take it that way, I respect that. And if they think that, then I don't want to say it. But then the next thing is, okay, we can't have a slogan now. And again, I'm not talking about Ethan specifically. I'm just talking about my views overall.
No, it's good.
Now
By the way, this is a good conversation.
Yeah. So we're not able to have a slogan. Now we're not able to identify the enemy because now I'm being told that Zionist is being associated with Jewish. And of course, people can use Zionist and call people Zionists where it's not true. But I don't think it's fair to say that calling people Zionists just as a flat line is anti-Semitic. That's me personally.
You're saying using a slogan is anti-Semitic.
We can't have a slogan. We can't identify the enemy, and now we can't give aid. That's another thing too. You can't give aid because there's this fear that Hamas is going to take the aid. And either way, both sides don't agree on anything. Everyone has their own talking points, but we can all agree, at least for the most part, on the numbers. And that's what worries me, is because this is happening I don't know what the proportional response is. I condemn Hamas, but whatever it is, it's not this.
Can I ask you, do you speak Arabic?
A little bit.
Okay,
My
I
wife
don't.
does.
You know what the Arabic version is of River to the Sea, right?
No, but I do know.
من الماء للماء فلسطين عربية. It means
Sure.
from water to water. Palestine is Arab. That's what it comes from originally, right? So it's like I can see why if you're Israeli, hearing that probably.
It sounds like he always has cotton in his. Yeah, people talk like that. I mean, like I sound like a 12-year-old boy, so like I got no place to speak on voices. You can't help it, okay?
Does sound like, okay, maybe this land is not for me. Maybe these people do want me gone. So I can see that. At the end of the day, I don't know. I don't think slogans are necessarily like the big issue. When I was in the West Bank, the kids coming up to us and trying to jump in front of the camera, they said "Free Palestine." It's like, okay. And you're looking around and like, okay, there's a checkpoint there that's all black because of the Molotov cocktails. There's people who are stuck at a checkpoint for like over an hour because people are being searched very, very carefully by the IDF. There are kids who have to go through a checkpoint out of school to get home. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty bad. Yeah, Free Palestine. Yeah, fuck this. This is awful. So yeah, I don't know. I think as far as slogans go and optics, I think Palestinians are pretty good at that, actually, aren't they? They're actually quite good at wooing the rest of the world in terms of like looking good or being sympathetic, right? Because they have their situation is something that people should be sympathetic with. On the other end,
I don't mean so much the oppressed overseas. I mean the people here who are trying to defend them. Like, there's this feeling of like, no matter what we say, we're gonna get cornered and be called anti-Semitic or something along those lines, whatever it is.
This is completely unrelated, and I'm really sorry to pause here, but I have never heard anyone refer to a motherboard as a MOBO, and I love it. Sorry, I'm talking to my mom about like how we gotta buy shit now, and then she's like, "Yeah, we'll buy you one for Christmas." And she's talking about mobile. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've never I guess it sounds so funny. Use mobile all the time. Mobo. Well, yeah, my mom literally is a famous computer programmer. She's big deal or whatever.
Yeah, terrorist sympathizer.
You feel like you don't.
Sorry, let's go back to this.
To like be called anti-Semitic or something along those lines, whatever it is. To be a terrorist sympathizer.
You feel like you don't. There's not a lot of freedom for somebody to just criticize Israel.
Yes, and let me be clear. That nothing to do with Ethan or Elo. Ethan has always encouraged me to say whatever I want. I'm very thankful for that. We had a full conversation in Vegas in which he said you could talk to me as your friend, and I truly appreciate that. So this is not a reflection of you, Ethan.
I don't take it that way at all.
Yeah.
This is good. This is my problem, is that like having a conversation even like remotely, like with any friction in it at all, or like this is a civil conversation we're having, is like beyond the pale. It's become beyond the pale. It's like untenable, and it's just I'm fucking over that shit. But I'm appreciative of what you're saying. I'm definitely hearing what you're saying, man.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please, yeah.
So obviously violent resistance is like not the optimal option. But when people are not being given aid and they're being killed, how do you propose peaceful resistance when they don't have resources to do anything at all right now?
I'm guessing you're talking pre-October 7th, is that right?
No.
Oh yeah, avocado, you are about to get very expensive. 25% tariffs on Mexico, baby.
I'm talking post-October 7th.
Oh, like, for people in Gaza.
What do people propose is done right now? Because it's been a year. Like, how can resistance be shown, or like what else can people do to get this because you were saying like people talk about it a lot, like the plight is talked about enough, but like when is it not talked about enough to when like all of these people are still dying? Like when is enough?
I don't think people should stop talking about it. I guess it's just when you're saying what kind of peaceful resistance, are you talking about people in the West or are you talking about people in West Bank or Gaza?
Mexico is the world's largest avocado producer exporter with a 53% share of the global market. Avocado's about to get expensive.
I don't think people should stop talking about it. I guess it's just when you're saying what kind of peaceful resistance, are you talking about people in the West or are you talking about people in West?
Well, if they're going to pay for it anyways, might as well do it now. You should start importing everything that is from that and then hold on to it and then upcharge it later, I guess.
Bank or Gaza? I'm not sure the question was.
She's saying that what other option? Well, it's going to happen basically, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah.
Like, how do we
Obviously,
move
it
forward?
shouldn't. But
Barking. Did that Amazon truck that just fucking straight into the branches?
You mean they drove straight into the tree
There's
branches?
some tree branches that are like, like fucking drove right into it.
What was the other option?
Not pull up. Not.
Okay. Those Cali avocados. Ooh, more financing for California, dude. We're seceding.
It shouldn't happen. We don't condone of it, but what?
and especially if you want to send aid there and people are scared that the aid will go to Hamas, which is I understand obviously, like there is a threat there, but if you fear that it'll be going to the terrorists, what do you do to supply aid to the innocent civilians who have been dying?
Huh? Sure.
And are dying.
As far as I know, with international law, at least, like if you're the occupying power, you have to make sure that aid can get in. I think the American government, I don't know if you know, recently there was like a measure that was taken in October for 2 weeks where Israel basically, the IDF, I think without getting approval from Central Command, basically decided that they were going to surround the north of Gaza. And to do that operation, they weren't going to let anything in. Okay. So they did that for about 2 weeks. And then I think that was when Kamala Harris came out and said, okay, you've got 30 days to fix this. Otherwise, we're going to reconsider selling arms to Israel. We're going to reconsider our position on aid. And that's a pretty unprecedented thing for America to do. America doesn't talk about reconsidering arms to Israel very often. And then on the very next day, KOGAT, the Israeli aid distributor agency, basically posted a bunch of videos saying, look, there's a bunch of trucks going into North Gaza. We got a bunch of trucks going in. So I think getting government pressure to Israel actually does go a long way. I think it actually did get them to reverse. And although I think the final verdict from America was that Israel still could have been doing better, that they had at least they stopped what would be the equivalent of like a medieval siege, because that's what it was.
No, not at all. Cali doesn't really get crushed by this any more than outside of the fact that they're just like our biggest economic hub, like literally the fifth in the world. But I don't think that anything directly, like one of the big things is tractors, like are going to be more expensive. When we talk about like manufacturing and stuff, like the hardest hit places are going to be places who don't even have a robust like industry to begin with, because a lot of California is very diverse economically. There's a lot of agriculture there as well, right? Which is going to be like more expensive than, because California itself already is a big exporter to other states. But like one of the biggest things is that a lot of California's industry is tech, and tech, you know, you could say with like literally like computer chips and stuff like that, like that might become more expensive and like take a hit in that aspect. But I think that that's the thing is computer chips are in everything. And we're talking about the automotive industry, like the Silicon Valley, like a lot of people don't even have cars. because we actually do have transit. I mean, the only thing that would be kind of like base if we started funding more like trains and shit. But I mean, obviously that would take years and years before that happened. But you know, I know it's a shit show, so let me cope, all right? Let me cope. Then maybe we'll put more idea into developing trade. But again, also pistons are like the entire mechanism of even being able to build a train system is going to be like fucking shit. Like it's going to hit like basically everyone the same. I don't really feel like it has anything specifically that it's going to affect California on. If anything, California will be able to hold out just because, for one, the economy is just always or is insanely good on its own. To a point where maybe they might actually be able to ignore them, depending on how wacky we want to get. I mean, if we're in like a no rules world anymore, like California could just ignore the tariffs, depending on how wacky wild they want to be. You know what I mean? We're gonna see a lot of crazy shit. Just saying. I don't really know how realistic that is, but I'm just saying, like, who gives a shit? We're living in a post-rules world. Fuck it. But if you want to get your tequila, make sure you buy it now. Stop! Well, in California, the prices are high because of like a standard of living thing, where it's not like it would be necessarily like 25% increase to what it is now. It would be like a 25% increase to like everything. So like the baseline price would be higher. That gets a little more complicated than I feel like that's above my pay grade, I guess I'll say. But again, I think if any state's gonna be fine, I think it's gonna be California. Goes through Mexico and Canada. Well, yeah, because California does all the commerce. It's like literally like the entire. I guess like if you didn't have any industry going for you, then you'd be fine as long as you weren't buying anything. Like we were going like Dust Bowl times or what? I mean, even in like every economic downturn, like you don't go to like unpopulated areas, right? Like you go to like cities and shit. Well, it depends where you are in California. Well, someone in chat is an undercover econ PhD. Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty like cut and dry that the 25% tariffs is economically ruinous. Like, not because we need to know that. It's that we know that literally economists have been talking about this since he announced it, what, like a year ago? And like every single one has basically said like, yeah, it's going to be economically ruinous. Like, it's a big yikes, some would say. Get your passports, fellas. I got my passport picture. I forgot to implement the thing. I should do that. I write it down. You don't get a passport. It's not that difficult to get a passport. You just gotta do a few things, but get a passport if you don't have one. I'm not saying like, oh, flee the country because Trump president, cringe. I just mean like, you should just have the option. Just protect yourself. As I've always said, the best thing to do is protect yourself. Whether or not anything happens, if nothing happens, then who gives a shit? You were out like $70 or something to get a passport. Stay safe. Protect yourself. If you feel like you might be at risk, get a gun. Make sure you get a gun that you know how to use. And make sure you store it safely. But I think more than anything, just keep like your documents up to date and stuff like that. 900. What? What passport service are you using? Oh, are you? Oh, never mind. I'm doing a little goof. I see what you're saying. Yeah, widespread tariffs are retarded because like we don't have the industry to make up for. The reason why tariffs are at all useful is because you want to promote the industry within the country. It is to an extent still an isolationist thing. I didn't agree with a lot of I mean some elements of it I did agree with the tariffs when it came to Biden's tariffing of like EVs or whatever. But like I had mixed feelings on that, I guess. But across the board, all it does is just harm the U.S. economy. Which Elon himself admitted, by the way. And again, it's not like it's not going to impact other countries either, which is just equally as stupid in a lot of ways. Like a no-win. You're just trying to mansplain my PC to me. Sorry. By the way, I was a hero today. As a dog owner, I feel like it's ultimate good karma, or I guess like it would be more like bad karma if like you saw a dog like randomly wandering around and you're just like, yeah, whatever. But there was a random dogs like these like they're like puppies, but they're like a large dog. Like I'm doing a really bad job of explaining this. They were not like tiny, but they were clearly puppies that were gonna be like really big. And they're like, I was like taking out the trash, like listening to my audiobook, like not paying attention at all. And these dogs are just chilling, and I was like, huh. I was like, wait. Why are these dogs over here? And I was like, oh, fuck. So I was like making food. And I was like, oh no. I'm re-listening to the Game of Thrones, so I'm on Feast for the Crows right now. But then I did all the effort, as in like I was making nugs, and then I brought out my chicken nuggets, and then I was like, come here, because I saw they were wearing collars, so I was like looking around, I was like, nobody's looking for a dog, so I grabbed fed them the nug, and then grabbed their collar. And then I called the phone number, and they didn't answer immediately. So I left a message, and then I put them in my backyard. It was like, I don't know what to do. But eventually, they texted me back. They're like, oh, I'm in a work meeting. Can you call this person? My husband and my sons are looking for them. And then I heard some like kids like yelling for their dog. And I was like, oh, are you looking for your dog? And then, I gave them their dog, and I was like, basically a hero. I'm kind of the best. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, chicken. They followed me when I did deliveries. I reckon they live nearby, so I let them be. That's the problem, Avocado. If they're just wandering around, they probably don't, because my dogs got out because I have workers that, came, and they didn't. I have 2 gates, and they didn't. They moved the other gate out of the way, and then they left the other gate open. It was like a 2-pronged failure there, and luckily my neighbors found them, and they were safe. And it's like, you got to pay it forward, right? Yeah, thank you. I'm an actual hero. Thank you. Are dogs gonna cost more? Wow. How many dogs do we import from Mexico? We're gonna get a 25% tariff on dogs? Mexico. Oh, what I'm looking up is just taking pets to Mexico. It's not really helpful. But yeah. They were older dogs and stayed on the street. Well, they probably don't want. When we went to our last weekend, was that last weekend? We went to the Renford. Yeah. We were like going to a cabin in like the middle of Texas. It was like out in like literally the forest, and there's just like these random fucking like dogs that were just like strolling around and like coming up to the car, like chasing it, and it was like really fucking scary because they just like were like, ah, because you don't want to hit them because they're running at your car, and it's like, what the fuck? Texas will probably implode. Yeah. If you think about it, breed obsession is weird. Absolutely. I mean, I always wanted a Corgal, but I do understand that that is weird. Anyways, back to this.
Was verdict from America was.
Well, I got to back it up a little bit because
We're
we're
going to reconsider selling arms to Israel. We're going to
right.
reconsider our position on aid, and that's a pretty unprecedented thing for America to do. America doesn't talk about reconsidering arms to Israel very often. And then on the very next day, Kogat, the Israeli aid distributor agency,
all dogs are angels.
basically posted a bunch of videos saying, look, there's a bunch of,
Maki's a demon.
trucks going into North Gaza. We got a bunch of trucks going in. So I think getting government pressure to Israel actually does go a long way. I think it actually did get them to reverse. And although I think the final verdict from America was that Israel still could have been doing better, that they had at least...
You're so stinky.
They stopped what would be the equivalent of like a medieval siege, because that's what it was for those 2 weeks in October. So I think...
Really quick. You know how cute she is. Hates being held so much. Look at how annoyed she is. She just winked at you.
The problem is
Guess like, I clip that.
I think people are just very disproportionate with the ways that they make complaints. And then when you get disproportionate and when you exaggerate or when you throw in false things, then you don't really know where the solutions are. So for the last year or so, when people have been saying there's an inevitable famine, you know, and like a famine is like you've got thousands of people dying of starvation like every other week. And obviously that didn't happen. But it means that people kind of like skip over what the actual issue is, because what should have been happening, I think, and what I think could have happened more from America was more pressure on Israel to actually facilitate the movement of aid throughout Gaza, because the big problem is that, yeah, like aid agencies don't really want to go to certain areas because they're too dangerous. Sometimes places will be so lacking in aid that when they do send a convoy in, it gets rushed at and then people get shot. So it's like, I think that's probably.
I think if you asked him about it, Avocado, he would say that. It's not really relevant to obviously what he's talking about here. So he's responding specifically to Olivia's question.
It's like when you assess it proportionately, I think you can come to answers a lot more easily.
I think your question is more like people in Gaza, right, who have no access. They have no means. They can't. I mean, they're basically just like totally fucked, right? In every conceivable way. You're wondering, like, how do they resist?
Yeah, and how does this whole new generation of children like not become
future terrorists? I'll say it for you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that's
that.
It
feels like sadly inevitable. Like all of these people, their entire existence will now be based on the fact that their like friends and family have been massacred.
That's actually a good question.
Homes.
Yeah, sorry, I get what you're saying now.
Yeah, like how do you
that's
stop
that's a really hard question. So I think the only thing I think is like maybe 5 or 6 months ago, maybe a bit less, I think American intelligence agencies were basically in agreement that Israel has achieved almost everything they can militarily by now. Like the only thing they can do left is like they go to an area, they take out the Hamas guys, and then they leave, and then Hamas tries to regroup, but they're regrouping with less resources. There's more buildings destroyed, so Israel goes in again, and it's like a diminishing return, and they're just going to weaken and weaken and weaken until there's just nothing left. But I think the only thing that can really happen for Gaza is, and this has been floated around since the summer, is that there needs to just be like a certain, like starting with one area at a time, of taking a zone that the IDF has been able to clear Hamas out of, and to just find whatever agency or any body in the world that isn't Israel, that isn't Hamas, can come in there and start to rebuild. And obviously Netanyahu, because he's a piece of shit, is obviously not really interested in pursuing that option by now. But I think that's really the only thing that can happen. Like there's no future in Gaza with Hamas. There's no future with Hamas, because if they stay, they're going to do the same thing again. They're going to rearm, they're going to rebuild, and they're going to try attack Israel again, and then Israel will respond, and then you'll get the same situation again, and more people die, and more people get radicalized. Like, yeah, they're a very self-perpetuating organization. And there's also not really, I think, anything happening with this current Israeli government. They either need to get kicked out by the locals, or they need to have a lot of pressure on them from the rest of the world. And I think with Trump coming in, that's not very likely, but I think that's what should happen. Whether we get there, I don't know.
Do you think that Bibi is like a war criminal?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's quite clear. In the beginning, do you know Bob Woodward, the guy who wrote that book, the journalist who wrote that book about behind-the-scenes conversations between politicians? Yeah. He
I know, YP. It's great. I love them. New fucking leftovers? I want to bring Dylan Burns into the mix. Yeah, that'd be sick. I am so hoping that this opens the door for him having like I understand him not wanting to necessarily touch Destiny because, you know, so much I guess bullshit would be not strong term, but we'll just use that for the sake of the conversation here. But like people like Dylan Burns, obviously Lonerbox, other people in that space who are very there's some people that Dylan Burns have talked to Who's the guy who does the not just bikes. Fuck, I don't think he's done a video recently, but I remember like seeing a conversation between Dylan Burns, I think Lonerbox, and other creators, and that guy, fuck. He always makes fun of like really stupid like things like the line. But like he's clearly very interested in like geopolitics and stuff like that, and I really hope this opens up the door to have like a lot better for him to use his platform for to influence or to support good content creators like Dylan Burns and obviously Lonerbox here. Shedding all that on such tanky vestige and have a combo with Destiny. Dylan and well, I think maybe you gotta like go up to Destiny. I understand wanting to not go directly that direction because then a lot of people will just who might be convinced who are fans of both Hassan and Ethan that they might be like, oh well, Destiny's like too toxic, I guess, where then you're kind of putting them back into Hassan's arms in that way, if that makes sense. So I understand slowly seeing how the audience would react to somebody like Lonerbox is very reasonable, and in the same way that Destiny is reasonable. Like he's not nearly as edgy, right? But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping to see more of I'm more interested in it. My personal politics has definitely shifted more towards, or like not like sorry, that sounded weird. I don't know what personal politics mean. Me personally, my politics seem to align more. I've moved a lot away from the Hassan type politics. I realized, a lot of the extreme things I do not agree with. Way more towards a reasonable position, which I think is like, the Dylan Burns stance, the Lonerbox stance, and the Destiny stance. Like that's a way more reasonable place that I feel. It's not that they influenced my politics, it's that my politics, I feel like I relate to it more. It's a bit spicy. Yeah, exactly, Wipey. Then you gotta, go there. Like, again, I don't know if you guys remember a few months ago, one of Dylan Burns's people who work with them, they were, I was telling them they should get in contact with Olivia to have Dylan on the show because Dylan's, for one, a funny guy, and two, like he again is like Loner, where he knows his shit. He's not like a clout chaser. He's doing really important work, and I think that he would absolutely agree, because I know Ethan's like very pro Ukraine. So like I really hope that this is because I know obviously we're kind of in that circle at this point where like Loner is like friends with them, but I'm really glad to see them have this conversation, and it seems like it was really well received from what I was seeing with some of the shit in the chat. So I'm excited to see more of this. Anyways,
clear in the beginning. Do you know Bob Woodward, the guy who wrote that book, the journalist who wrote that book about behind-the-scenes conversations?
Yeah.
Between politicians.
Again, one of the other things you also have to understand about the H3 audience is it's like significantly like there's a lot of women in the audience. Like the H3 audience is like 80% women. So you got to keep that in mind on like not wanting to go balls deep into Destiny content immediately, because yeah, the man knows his audience. I think that you got to kind of ease that type of community into like anything related to Destiny, Anyways, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I think it's quite clear in the beginning. Do you know Bob Woodward, the guy who wrote that book, the journalist who wrote that book about behind-the-scenes conversations?
Yeah.
Between politicians. Yeah, he there was one bit in there where on October 7th until about the end.
Wait,
of the
he was
month,
the one who did the Jeffrey,
there was a complete
the
shutdown
Epstein things, I think,
of aid going into Gaza. And the argument I heard at the time, because when I was in Israel, I met a couple of Israeli propagandists, like government propagandists, And they said that, like, oh, that only happened because there were a bunch of breaches in the border, some crossings were damaged, and you had to rebuild that to make sure and organize passage with the aid organizations so that we could actually make things function properly. But it turns out that behind the scenes, they had solved that problem, but Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, mostly Netanyahu, were insistent on keeping the border blocked, which is a war crime. Like, it doesn't matter if you're not obligated to give them anything yourself. Like, if you're an occupier, you're not obligated to be the one that buys the food and brings it there, but you are obligated 100% to allow aid to pass through there. You have to do that. And if you deny that, which it seems like Netanyahu did knowingly, and complained to Biden for pushing back against it, that's a war crime. That's a pretty grave war crime. Yeah.
It's such a shame that the government in Israel right now is so fucked, and not just even Netanyahu, but like the whole coalition is just so fucked. It's just so fucked. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't really help that he's somehow managed to push his approval ratings up again because of the military successes against Hezbollah and
I noticed
killing
that too.
Sinwar.
I noticed like people in Israel were like mega anti Netanyahu, and after it was specifically after the pager attack, I feel like that the public was like, okay, maybe we can keep the war going with Bibi or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just that I think with the Israelis, obviously there was a time when they were a lot more open to peace, like in the 90s and the 2000s. And then I think it was mostly the second intifada that just kind of broke everyone's brains over there. And obviously pulling out of Gaza unilaterally and then seeing Hamas appear like within a year or two afterwards and firing rockets over at you, that didn't help either. But I don't think Israelis they're not stupid. So there was quite a bit of hope I got when I was like the Tel Aviv protesters, the ones who are pushing for an end to the war and for ceasefires and to pursue some alternative.
Yeah, a lot of people in Israel don't want to live there because they know their fucking government is like not making them safe at all. Like, obviously everyone's subjected to their own propaganda to some level or the other, but like, you know, as you said, they're not stupid.
That isn't just like total victory or whatever that means. I think once this side of things is done and there's like a next phase of whatever comes next, I don't think Israelis are going to forget that Netanyahu, like, this is in large part his fault. He posed himself as the security guy for
And then October 7th happened. Yes.
20 years. He said, yeah, I might be corrupt. I might be unlikable. You might hate me, but I'm the guy who keeps you safe. I'm the security guy. And then he oversees the biggest failure in Israeli security ever in their entire history.
True.
And he does this in large part because he was complacent. He thought that he had actually used his stance and his positioning to convince Hamas to stay quiet. And the entire time he was being duped, to the point that people, these poor, it was like mostly
outside. You don't need to go out. I shouldn't have said out. Tao. Duo? Did I say that backwards?
the young woman actually watching the borders and his positioning to convince Hamas to stay quiet. And the entire time he was being duped, to the point that people, these poor, it was like mostly a young woman actually watching the borders, would send in reports saying there's irregular movements at the border, there's irregular activity that's built up, and people just saying, nah, they're just doing that to keep each other busy. You know, they're not interested in a large confrontation. I think people will remember that, hopefully. And if Hamas and Hezbollah can be properly defanged and like they don't pose the same threat to Israel that they did, then I think the Netanyahu excuse for fighting massively goes away. Like, if they can actually take out Hamas, then there's no excuse for the blockade. It's gone. And like every country in the world should completely disown Israel if they keep it going after that. So
I agree that Hamas should be taken out of power.
I'm just saying that's fine if he's taken out of context, but instead of being sassy, I would hope that you would correct the record. We don't need any more sass in the chat.
But I also have this fear that this is an excuse to make allow this genocide to basically continue. Like, I don't know what the answer is of how to remove Hamas while at the same time not massacring so
The fuck is going on back here?
many people.
Yeah, and I guess that's true. And it's like, even if Netanyahu weren't a war criminal, even if they did everything right by the books of the law in war, yeah, you'd still kill a lot of civilians because that's how Hamas fights. But I don't really know. That's why I think right now, because Hamas will fight forever. I don't think they're going to stop. Obviously, the right thing for them to do would be to surrender and to agree to hand over the governance of the Strip to anyone that's not the IDF and that's not Hamas. That would be ideal. But I think that's why I think the burden should be on the IDF and Israel a lot more to take parts of Gaza that they can actually secure some kind of like calm in, and then just it needs to be.
Oh no, Gazans are absolutely fucked when Trump is in power.
I don't think Israelis and Palestinians can solve this by themselves. I think America, wherever else, Saudis, Emiratis, Qataris, I think the entire world needs to do something about this. Like, and we've done that after wars in the past, like in World War II. It took the rest of the world to repair the damage caused by that. This is not the same damage as World War II, but it's going to take international help, and I don't think it's going to happen alone.
But I mean, there's no way to determine this, but my feelings of a future Kamala presidency, it seemed that she was not a fan, more than anything, Netanyahu's not a fan of her, which I feel like is a good sign. I feel like if Netanyahu likes you, you're probably a piece of shit. And I felt like obviously she had to toe the line, because she is VP currently still, you know, but maybe this is my hopium, and I understand that. That there is like I don't know, like a 30% chance that I'm actually correct on this, that she actually would be looking for a solution. I would say it's probably a solid, like, you know, 30-70 on the fact that like she would just continue to toe the line, but again, she seems more like a problem solver person who actually wants to get shit done. And she's not I never really saw a lot of signs of her being a Zionist outside of just her supporting her president, you know? Wasn't happy in any way with Ben. Well, yeah, no, he specifically said he... Oh, I got it! Got one of the gnats. Sorry. That he like didn't like her, which is like I think a good sign. He like literally Netanyahu said as a gift to Trump they would do like a little bit of a ceasefire in Lebanon for like a few days or some shit. Like insane, right?
But that's kind of what Gallant was saying, to go back to this really silly controversy, in my opinion, is that the military objectives are done, and he doesn't understand why the IDF needs to be there any longer, and he wanted to withdraw the military, which seemed like a good
and called everyone hates Netanyahu, like literally, like since like I think the first Bush, how long has he been in power? Like I know like Clinton said that he like hated him. Like everyone's hated Netanyahu because he's a piece of shit. He's like famously incredibly unlikable.
Voice to have on the cabinet, and then you know Netanyahu fired him. So it's, you know,
yeah, but he's kind of a fucking nutty in his own right.
I never said. Well, listen, I never said.
What do you mean? Okay, whatever. Sorry, let's say focus.
About his character.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I mean, I said it's so funny how people twist it. I said he's a moderate.
No, I'm talking specifically to Moko about like presidential leaders. He's just like a dick. Like famously, like every single president that he's interacted with, like, so he's like a fucking asshole.
Operating voice on the cabinet.
Wasn't Netanyahu a literal? No, he's like a nepo baby
And then people say, "Oh, Ethan said he's a moderate."
who like grew up like in America, or he went to school here. He's not like a He's a very establishment guy.
It's like that's totally fucking different. But and I think this is so stupid because like I'm trying to have a productive conversation about this, and it just turns into like, oh, Ethan defended you of Gallant, or I don't know, stupid.
It's not really worth it. At the end of the day, there's not really that much, because I had these problems as well, but it's not really worth getting hung up on because, yeah, Gallant did say that pretty horrible thing at the beginning.
Oh my god, this is destroying my entire view of Lonerbox. I always thought he was standing up. Or does he just have like a really high chair? Or is his keyboard really close? Because he's clearly on a chair here. Yeah, I'll back it up in a sec. But like, is this man sitting down? Is he like in a bar chair? That's what I need to fix my fucking desk. Because this is a standing desk, but it doesn't work. But I think if I make a big huff about it to Uplift, I think that they'll send me whatever to fix it. Because this desk was like $2,000. And I want to be able to stand up. No, I just think that'd be like, why would you have a keyboard if you're sitting down like in a chair? Like if my keyboard was like down here, like how would you play it? You know what I mean? Like the angle of the keyboard is what I like judge on where he's at. Like, cause like if he was in a chair, then his keyboard would be like at his knees. My guess is he's like in a bar chair. So he's basically at standing height. Yeah, but he couldn't play it at the level that he's at right now. I'm just saying like the height. Like his desk must be at like a standing desk level. Because I used to do that too. I used to sit in a bar chair when I had my desk all the way up. Which again, I'm really annoyed that this shit doesn't work anymore. Here, write that down. I'll get my passport fixed, and then I'll also fix my fucking chair. Or not my chair, my desk. Except I lost my... No, I didn't. I'm basically like, I bought like a sports car where I can only go to like a third gear right now.
About no food, no aid, like human animals, whatever. Yeah, like, pretty.
I don't know, stupid. And then people say, "Oh, Ethan said he's
fucking nutty in his own right."
I never said. Well, listen, I never said anything about his character.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I mean, I said it's so funny how people twist it. I said he's a moderating voice on the cabinet, and then people say, "Oh, Ethan said he's a moderate." It's like that's totally fucking different. But and I think this is so stupid because like I'm trying to have a productive conversation about this, and it just turns into like, "Oh, Ethan defended you of Gallant," or I don't know, stupid.
It's not really worth it. At the end of the day, there's not really that much, because I had these problems as well, but it's not really worth getting hung up on because, yeah, Gallant did say that pretty horrible thing at
Do you think they coordinated their shirts?
the beginning about no food, no aid, like human animals, whatever. Yeah, like you don't need to like him. At the end of the day, like everyone in the entire history of Israel Palestine has done horrible shit. Everyone said and done horrible shit. Everyone, like any Palestinian leader that you like, look into their past. They've said something crazy, anti-Semitic, or supported some kind of like terror or anything else, or like even Arafat. You know, what was he doing for the entire 20th
What? Why are you defending Hamas leaders?
century, right? He was coordinating attacks on civilians, like hijacking buses and killing civilians, hijacking planes. people still saw him at the end of the day. Was it wrong to say that at one point he was a potential body for peace in the region? I mean, he was. He made steps. He put forward olive branches, right? It's okay to say that about him, right? It's okay to say that about Mahmoud Abbas or anyone else. So, yeah, Gallant compared to Netanyahu was more moderate. Yeah, that's okay to say. And
Yeah, he wanted to end the war. Yeah. Or at least he wanted to withdraw. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he's fucking. Yeah, he's crazy too, obviously.
We live in a fucking gray world, especially on this conflict. And I feel like everyone wants to put it in a black and white because I guess that's being a little on that comment, being black and white by saying everybody. I think it's a lot of people want to, because it's the way that our minds work, right? Like you want to categorize things and what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing. Where it's like it's more complicated than that when it comes to like talking about the history. If we're talking about like what's happening now, there's a pretty direct line of Israel's in the wrong and et cetera, et cetera. But you gotta like go a little bit farther to that, then it gets like complicated, right? Why have nuance when you can soy point, right? I mean, I learned that, you know, as he's saying, it's not really like people are gonna say whatever they're gonna say. It doesn't really matter.
Yep,
Yeah.
still a right winger, but he.
All right.
Yeah. Or at least he wanted to withdraw. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he's fucking. Yeah, he's crazy too, obviously. You know what I
Yep,
mean?
still a right winger, but he, at least on that particular issue, yes, he was a bit more moderate. Yes.
Yeah. There you go. See?
I have a question, because you said that it should begin with Hamas surrendering, but not to IDF or Israel, to a third party. But what if they don't? Okay, let's say they don't. Is it okay then for all of these innocent people to keep dying until they do? How do we?
No, I don't think it's okay at all. Nothing. It's never really okay when.
So how
innocent
do we
people die,
target
so.
the Hamas terrorists without hurting innocent people?
I don't think you can. There's not really. That's Hamas chooses to fight on those terms, but that's also why I don't think it's the IDF's like. That's why
So if
this
Hamas
total
is doing
victory
it, then
doctrine.
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. But if Hamas
okay.
is doing it, then IDF is okay to also do that?
That is not at all what he said, but okay.
And like we're talking about the proportions and numbers here. Several more Palestinians are dying.
Yeah. So there's like I don't really like the legal arguments because they just sound really cold. I think in terms of like the way that laws work, there are like arguments that the IDF can make and get away with because they can basically just say that, yeah, if you hide behind civilians, then, and that's the only way we can get to you, then we're going to have to do a strike that's going to take out the people that we're targeting, but also the civilians. But like, I don't really agree with that to the absolute end, because the problem is that you're going to do that for decades potentially. Like you're just going to be fighting a permanent insurgency, which is why I think they should focus a lot less on, well, let's just get the bad guys and whoever dies, fuck them. It should be a lot more on trying to live with the fact that Hamas won't stop, but also to think of ways to build up alternatives in Gaza. And that's a much harder thing to do. It's a much harder thing for the IDF to do. And I do blame Hamas for that, but I think they still need to do it.
Phoebus, you're the kind of doing the exact example of what we're saying about like nobody's saying that. You were just saying that somebody misquoted what you said. I'm not sure who you're responding to, but if it was to anything that I said, I don't feel like I said that, but I don't know who you're talking to. No, her question was absolutely valid. I just feel like it's and again, she's working on the show. She's coming in and out. I get it, but it's like also like I guess I've just heard that so many times. It's like, for lack of a better term, like I just like kind of like an eye rolly thing, which is unfair in a lot of ways, because it's not unfair for her to ask that at all. It's just like, for me, it's like, I just heard it so many times that to me it feels frustrating, because I guess it just seems like uninformed, which she might be in this situation. So again, that's why it's stupid for me to be frustrated. I'm just being honest about my feelings about it. But there's nothing like inherently wrong with what you said, and you're right on that.
I know what you mean, though. Hamas will never. They'll never surrender, as far as I'm aware. Shit, I don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like.
I mean, again, like Lonerbox is talking about like actual like objective solutions that make sense. Again, he's a sociologist. Like, he's not divorced from understanding the feelings of the people when he's doing his analysis, of course. So, I mean, I think that making a prediction, I think people get really pissed off at people for doing that, and I don't really understand why. So I can't imagine how hard it is for her. Oh yeah, no, her family's like from Lebanon, where I think a lot of her family still lives there. Yeah, I think that they might have misinterpreted what Lonerbox said, which again is fair to clarify. You know, it's a civil conversation, so I mean, again, all questions are appreciated on this, like, because you don't want to have this like question sitting there and like seem like he didn't address it, because I'm sure. I don't feel like Lonerbox would at all be opposed to addressing it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think your ideas seems kind of interesting about just like partitioning pieces off and clearing it and trying to do that all the way through, but there's not really any good solutions. It's just really fucked right now.
I think sometimes, and just to be clear, like I'm not like a military expert, so a lot of this is just me reading as many opinions as I can and just trying to find the one that makes the most sense to me. So pinch of salt, all that. I think sometimes when it comes to situations like this, is like there's not really a best option or even a good option. There's just like a less bad one. Obviously, there's
harm reduction,
new information that could come out about this particular conflict that would make me change my mind on what should be done. But yeah, I think right now when you just have this kind of like, it's always been the case that Netanyahu and Hamas like feed each other, right?
Like he said that Hamas wouldn't surrender, but that's what they should do. And she was asking her question as if Lonerbox expected that. Right. I mean, that's still a fair thing for her to ask, of course. But yeah, I think she just, I mean, she works on the show, so it's like, she might not have been like sitting there like listening to the whole conversation. Yeah, I'm sure she's doing other stuff. I mean, even if she is doing that, like I understand like maybe not tracking the whole thing. It's you'd rather ask the question than not. So I absolutely agree that she should have asked it regardless. I don't think that she looked bad for asking that. It just like it does seem like she just wasn't with us on that, but it doesn't mean that like I don't know, she's like an idiot or anything like that. She's not. It would be better to clarify than to just have to not because there's other people in the audience that I'm sure have the same thoughts.
Hamas helps Netanyahu because it keeps the Palestinians divided. He said that. He said that when he was justifying letting Qatari money go to Gaza. But Netanyahu also helps Hamas because when Palestinians think, well, there's no olive branch coming from this government. There's no one saying, let's bring back the peace process. So what are we going to do? Like, yeah, it's a shame.
Oh, no, she's not at all.
Did that answer your question, Lena?
I don't think directly about the people who are dying, but
Well, no, I just want to clarify. So you were saying that civilians are dying in Gaza.
Yeah, and it's always but civilians are dying, but and then there's a reason for justifying it, and I can't
I don't think he said that.
Understand that.
You're saying that the civilians need to stop dying. I mean, essentially, the war needs to stop.
And yeah, I mean,
that's the only way they stop dying, right? Is if the war stops.
I don't know what the solution is. I
guess it also kind of feels like the idea of like asking him for a solution. Like he's not like as he said, a military general. He can just give you what are the most likely situations. Like, he's just doing an analysis, right? Like, I don't think that, like, he can give a solution here. You know, like, what do you want from him? Like, I don't... If her question was just, like, what is the solution here? Like, and she wanted, like, a direct answer, you can't give her one. That's impossible. Like, he's not, like, a person in power. He's just doing an analysis, right? All he can do is give the most likely things or the best positions you can have, you know, stuff like that. And that is, I guess, when I feel like it would be unfair if she was unhappy with his response. Because what are you expecting from him? Like, he can only give his analysis. See, that's kind of the problem that I think that Hassan has, where Hassan does for some reason have these like really grand claims about how things will be fixed, and then backs off when he's like completely wrong about it. Where like that's why I trust Lonerbox more. It's unsatisfying, right? It's an unsatisfying answer because that is the truth of it. Nobody fucking knows what happens. You have to live in this, we all live in the same fucking world of ifs and all of these things. All you can do is analyze the information you're given and make predictions. No hate to her at all. I think that she's being fine on that. I'm just saying, like, I think this is like an unrealistic question, or it's an unrealistic question to ask from somebody who's just doing an analysis, right? Like, he's has no power, like but I understand like the frustration of wanting to ask it. You know.
Wish there was another way to get these.
So back up, just get her whole statement.
The war stops.
I don't know what the solution is. I just wish there was another way to get these to target these terrorists better, where you're not getting all these kids caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, I hear a lot of optical solutions. This would be perfect if this happened, but I never hear a realistic one. So you'll say this would be great if this happened, if the IDF stopped. They should stop. But I never hear like a realistic, and then it ends there. There's never any further realistic solution.
For example,
well, again, like if you're working in, again, you have to just do this is what should happen, blah blah blah. Like that's all you can do, unless you're like literally in the cabinets talking about it. Like, which again, why the fuck would they tell us that, right? It's the best you're gonna get. I don't understand being frustrated about this. I mean, I do understand being frustrated. Sorry, let me rephrase. I do understand being frustrated about this, but I don't understand what you're expecting Lonerbox to say.
Example, I think maybe a specific question.
Like he's just giving ideas, right? Like, you know, you're just doing an analysis, right?
Let's say that there is a building, an apartment building of a bunch of civilians, and it's suspected that a Hamas terrorist is hiding in the building among them. Is it okay then to strike the whole building to get that one Hamas terrorist and kill all of these other people because just to get that one target?
I don't think so, but I don't know who.
Yeah, I would say no.
Yeah, I would say no for sure.
But that's what's happening, right?
That's like a really. I think that's
propaganda,
happening.
Lena.
Say what?
It's hard
Maybe?
to say how often that is happening. Like I'm sure it had. Like there have definitely been moments where I think it definitely had. No, it definitely has happened. Yeah.
Oh, we saw them blowing
I think,
up like the aid cars with that they thought like one terrorist was in. That was just horrible. The like kitchen.
Yeah, and it turns out the
international kitchen.
person who made that decision, who I think was actually fired because he was breaking the rules. They were supposed to call the aid organizations, and they didn't answer, but they were supposed to double check and check again because they knew that aid workers were using that route. It turns out the guy that actually signed off on that strike was a settler, a guy who opposed humanitarian aid going into Gaza, who actually argued very vehemently against aid trucks going into Gaza. That guy was
that's a
like
systemic
a
issue with the IDF, though, right? That a fucking someone like that would be in that position.
Yeah, and the lack of accountability is awful. But yeah, to answer the question about what one terrorist in a building full of 20 or 30 people or 50 or whatever, it's like a really difficult moral question. I know that in like law they try to solve it because they say that, well, it's legal if the collateral damage, they call it, the civilian harm, is lower than the military advantage that you're going to get from it. And it's like, okay, how do you measure these two things? Like, how do you measure a military advantage against a number of civilian deaths or human lives? You can't really do it.
Yeah,
So,
you can't quantify like you'd have to be able to quantify civilian lives in some sort of way that would relate towards like a nebulous, as you said, advantage. It's an unsolvable like there's no algorithm for it, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's really just you gotta hope you're doing the right thing type of thing.
I think the way that some people try to solve it is they say is like, do we have any other way of stopping this threat? And generally in law, if you don't, then you just say, well, yeah, go ahead. And then people somehow do.
Who's this person talking? This is Lonerbox. He's a great content creator. I suggest his content. He mostly, I don't think he streams on Twitch at all. He might cross stream, but I watch him on YouTube when I watch his content. So it's literally just Lonerbox, one word. He's a great content creator. I suggest it. He's very funny too.
Do those jobs and manage to sleep at night. Like, that's why I think that there's only so much that the IDF could have done militarily. I think, and they've probably exceeded that by now. Like, they don't need to gain any more. That's why they need to go and pursue other options.
Well, so, and to represent like the Israeli perspective, they would say, so you have these terrorists that went and did this horrible attack, and then they retreated back into Gaza. And they are, I mean, they are.
Oh yeah, he's Lonerbox Live on YouTube, sorry. Or he has two channels. One of his channels I think is Lonerbox, but his channel that he streams on is Lonerbox Live. He has two different channels. He does like long form content. I don't think he does it that often, but like it's very dry. So he's very funny himself, but he doesn't really like put a lot of humor into his like videos because he's very I guess essay like in his videos where he's just kind of telling you the facts as they are. And to some extent he like influences his opinion. But his live streams I think are his better content. Just because as you see here, like this is him live. He's very you know, personable, and like I think you get more of his personality from the lives, but you know, it's all good content.
Their bases are under hospitals. They shoot from schools. They embed themselves in the
Fuck this sub count. That makes sense because I bet he got a big boost from him supporting Lonerbox. Yeah, I really hope that I mean that's what I was hoping to see from this whole debacle, to see like some good actual like left-wing content creators that are significantly more reasonable, like Dylan Burns and Lonerbox. I think that they're fantastic content creators. Which is also one of the reasons why I was so pissed about the Vosh thing. But let's ignore that. And yeah, they do really important analysis. I think that they're great resources. If you want to get news, like he streams like almost every day. And he's always talking about current events. He's got great analysis of the subjects he talks about. He's very thoughtful. And I'm glad to see more attention on him. For 9 months, let's go. Unemotionally about the topic, yeah, exactly. Like that's why I think that he probably didn't pop off as much, because he's not like he's very analytical and like thoughtful about it, while also being like a little goofy sometimes, but he is not like doing it like the way that Hassan would with like trying to radicalize people. He's just kind of saying it as it is. No, I know, I'm agreeing with you, KB Bradley. I know. I think that that's like a really, I think that's what we need right now. We just need some actual like I love his voice personally. I simp for Lonerbox's voice. I don't know why. I find it very satisfying. So again, I'm a Lonerbox simp, and I'm also a Dylan Burns simp. And I just relate this too because they're homies, and they're also, I think, really underappreciated content creators. I don't think he's particularly awkward. I think he's actually doing fantastic. I think he's actually incredibly not awkward in this stream.
Population, they even should.
Like they kind of gave him like really
they are-
awkward questions, and then he just kind of like just reacts to it completely like fine.
Their bases are under hospitals. They shoot.
Yeah, he
from
is very
schools.
entertaining.
They embed themselves in the civilian population. They even dress as civilians when they fight. So like, I guess I don't
seems
know
very
what,
chill.
like the IDF, just to give them like a plausible road into dealing with that situation. Like what does the IDF do from the Israeli perspective? You know what I mean? I'm curious.
I mean,
It's his biggest sin is that he'll say the word retard.
From the Israeli
Sorry.
perspective, you know what I mean? I'm curious.
I'll bite the difficult bullet. Like I think that after October 7th, there was always going to be some level of IDF incursion into Gaza. That was always going to happen. You can't just let an attack like that happen onto a sovereign country and not respond to it.
That's part of what frustrates me too, is that I see so many people like jubilant, like just like, yes, October 7th was fucking the best. And it's like, well, we all know the inevitable consequence of that is going to be like terrible. And I'm not saying it's right or even justified, but it's going to be terrible. And yeah, I find it kind of ironic. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I guess that's just like it's still, the problem with what's happening now is that Netanyahu, obviously, and his war cabinet have given the chief of staff this job, take out Hamas, but he's not doing it with the goal of allowing Palestinians to eventually self-govern or to eventually, like stop being bombed. Or he's not really going for that. We don't know what he's going for, really. He keeps saying total victory. He keeps saying he doesn't want settlers to go into Gaza. Other people in his government obviously do want settlers to go in. That's like the really big problem, is he's never made it very clear what his total like objective is from this war. Total victory is not an objective. It's just a slogan. It doesn't mean anything. And I really think that it would be
To me, it sounds like I want to kill everybody.
It would behoove the Western leftists, I think, who care a lot about this issue and who can actually get the government to listen to them if they are good with their messaging and everything else, to push for something like, if it was me, if I was the...
Well, yeah, I mean, like, the October 7th attack was just, like, desperate play on, like, what else we got going on, you know? It wasn't really like a 7D chess play. It was just a desperate people doing a desperate move that just was worse all around.
The Americans, I would say, like, Netanyahu, this Israeli government needs to acknowledge that the IDF is not going to stay in Gaza. They're going to come out. Someone else is going to have to govern that strip, and they're going to have a state. They can't just be some kind of like non-state entity forever. And that needs to be resolved. And America can influence the PA. They can influence, to some degree, they can influence Israel with like, just with words sometimes, because Israelis actually listen to Americans. They actually care quite a lot about the American president thinks. So, yeah, I think that should be.
Oh, absolutely, Wipey. Didn't say it was justified, just saying it is what it is.
And unfortunately, that just hasn't really happened. I don't think Harris really did.
Like, the idea thinking that 9/11 did anything good, like, is insane. Also, like, but again, desperate measures for desperate people doesn't mean that they're right, doesn't mean that it gets anything done. It's not a excuse or anything of that. It's just an explanation for why it happened.
Nearly enough to push that, and Biden didn't. But I think that's what needs to be.
Well, I mean, there's also an element of probably the desperation of like, just like, I want to get my wins when I can because I'm going to die tomorrow type of thing. I mean, I think not saying that it wasn't, that these people aren't desperate, it would be silly.
Pushed a lot harder is that you can't just have an Israeli government forever that's just rejecting Palestinian statehood. Like it needs to be acknowledged. And
I think it was something a lot of activists would say. Well, actually, we deny that. I mean, I've heard Hassan say this, and it's pretty popular perspective that Hamas does not use human shields, quote unquote, or they don't use public buildings, and they don't.
Pebbles, that's a very
Nice and chilly outside.
you're ignoring all of the actual realities of what happened if you really think that that's effectively what happened. But that would be the desperate aspect of it, right? Like, again, that's the 9/11 connection, right? It's the 9/11 objectively just made everything worse for everybody. Same thing with October 7th. It just made everything worse for everybody. Yeah, to some extent, it's like a tantrum that also gets like a shit ton of other people killed. And on both sides there, but like obviously it's not like it helped your side.
Fight popular perspective that Hamas does not use human shield.
Yeah. Also, I don't think that like when Hamas was going for that when they were slaughtering innocent people, that they were like, yes, people are gonna be really sympathetic with my cause. I think a lot of it was just direct like religious extremist type shit. Well, I'm running to the bathroom. Monkey's being so cute.
Young men want pussy, they're going to have to stop being so unfuckable.
I asked Razor to go to the dispensary or whatever you would call it to get gummy. Oh shit. I unplugged my monitor a little bit and it was like doing this like matrix screen thing. And he got like a joint, I guess. And now it just smells like weed anytime that he keeps coming in here. I think he's getting really fucking high.
Quote unquote. Deny that. I mean, I've heard Hassan say this, and it's pretty popular perspective that Hamas does not use human shields, quote unquote, or they don't use public buildings, and they don't fight like that. I think what they would say is it's densely populated.
mean
Like, of
avocado.
course, how can you avoid being near a school or a fucking whatever it is, or near
Tunnels
civilians?
famously,
Yeah, I mean,
if you could build into the ground, why can't you build up out of the ground? The idea that like tunnels like take like a lot of like or anywhere near equivalent resources to building up is hilarious.
people will say it's another thing where people just play with words, right? They'll just, oh, it's guerrilla warfare. Well, okay, that doesn't make it okay. Like, just because you change the words to something that sounds nicer. If you want to get into a legal argument, people get really weird about. There are weird interpretations of what the law in human shields is, and no one really knows exactly like what it means to have an intent to co-locate your civilians with your military. But we
What? Are you being racist against Lebanese people? No, it's our boy Lonerbox on H3. Which means there's a big chance Dylan might go on this too. I know.
we know with Hamas that they do it for a reason, right? Like their tunnels are underneath buildings.
I would kill to see Dylan on the H3 pod, because what he does is so important, and I'm such a big supporter.
For a reason, they're dressing as civilians for a reason, and it's
He's
in large
way
part because they
underappreciated.
don't
That
really
they dress as civilians.
You're so annoying when you're high. This is Lonerbox.
But every day we watch it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. A guy who used to do.
Did the award show with him.
Oh, the Egyptian guy? I have no idea. His thing was like, it was like a Muslim Daily News or something like that.
Like, it was like Philip DeFranco, but dead.
Oh, I thought you were doing a deep cut. I have no idea what you're talking
And
about.
then he became like a comedy thing. Changed all of his content.
I don't know. Can you give me any other characteristics?
Kind of looks like this guy.
He kind of looks like Lonerbox. What channel was he on?
Channel. That's the name I can't think of, but he 3. Every morning, his video and it's about drama. Philip DeFranco. Out of nowhere,
Tom Moore?
changed all of his content, became a comedian that wasn't funny. Opened like
I think you're just
he
mixing.
opened like a comedy club thing. Started doing like live shows from there, and they.
If you're just gonna keep.
He's Brazilian.
Okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. All right, we're moving on.
Who is it?
dressing as
Chat?
civilians for
Nobody
a
has
reason.
any idea what you're talking. You're so annoying.
And it's in large part because they don't
Debatable that
really.
they dress as
Nobody.
civilians?
It's whoever you made up in your
No.
mind.
No, I didn't make it
It's not
up.
debatable.
We gotta figure
Not
this
all
out
of them
right
do,
now.
but yeah, it's
Or
not
that
really
their
all of them.
headquarters are under hospitals? Because I see people deny that too.
So
Around like before
the headquarters, as far as I know, they moved. There's a speech from Sinwar in about 2019, 2020, where he was talking about complaints about the headquarters location and that they'd moved it. So I know that
I have literally no idea what you're talking about.
it was under Al Shifa for a while. I don't know if they, I'm sure they moved it. It seems like they moved it. But yeah, Amnesty International, who are
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Deaf Noodles. He does not look like him. What, he's got dark hair? Are you lighting something on fire? What are you... Oh, no.
by no means pro-Israel. They actually really don't like Israel.
Sorry.
Al-Shifa for a while. I don't know if
Sorry, I gotta back that up quite a bit. Sorry, Razor was confusing me.
Does not use human shields, quote unquote, or they don't use public buildings, and they don't fight like that. I think what they would say is it's densely populated. Like, of course, how can you avoid being near a school or a fucking whatever it is, or near civilians? You know.
Yeah, I mean, people will say it's another thing where people just play with words, right? They'll just, oh, it's guerrilla warfare. Well, okay, that doesn't make it okay. Like, just because you change the words to something that sounds nicer. If you want to get into a legal argument, people get really weird about. There are weird interpretations of what the law in human shields is, and no one really knows exactly like what it means to have an intent to co-locate your civilians with your military. But we know with Hamas that they do it for a reason, right? Like their tunnels are underneath buildings for a reason. They're dressing as civilians for a reason. And it's in large part
Is
because
that
they
debatable
don't
that
really
they dress as civilians?
No.
No.
It's not debatable. Not all of them.
Well, why would they dress in like uniform? Like, they don't have like enough of like a military force on their own where it would make sense to do that. You know what I mean?
Some do, but yeah, it's
Or
not
that
really all
their
of them do,
headquarters are under hospitals? Because I see people deny that too.
So the headquarters, as far as I know, they moved. There's a speech from Sinwar in about 2019, 2020, where he was talking about complaints about the headquarters location and that they'd moved it. So I know that it was under Al-Shifa for a while. I don't know if I'm sure they moved it. It seems like they moved it. But yeah, Amnesty International, who are by no means pro-Israel, they actually really don't like Israel. Yeah, they said that in 2014. And they spoke about how Hamas was using Al-Shifa to torture people that they suspected of collaboration. So, and even when the IDF raided Al-Shifa, it took them like a couple of weeks to like quote unquote secure the hospital. I doubt they were spending 2 weeks just like fighting through patients. You know, like yeah, there's obviously Hamas presence there. We know that they use, you know what? If we're talking about Hassan and all that, like just listen to their own words. You can go on Hamas's website, Al Qassam PS. They have their own obituaries for soldiers who died in previous wars. They're all listed. They'll tell you everything about this soldier's career as a soldier and what they did and what they were doing when they died and where they came from. They'll also tell you what kind of military activity they were up to. They'll tell you where they were storing weapons. They'll tell you that in 2008, when Hamas were integrated into the police forces and the police buildings that had civilian cops in them were also full of Hamas soldiers. We know that one of their military installations for producing explosives was underneath a prison. We know that that they have what's called, I think it's like the militants mosque or the military mosque, Arabic translation. Yeah, we know that the very first ever Hamas weapon stockpile was discovered in a mosque. We know that that tunnel where 6 hostages were shot in the head a few months ago had a foreign journalist, a Sky News journalist, go in and verify that that tunnel entrance was underneath a child's bedroom. So Hamas won't even hide from that. They'll admit that they have tunnels. They'll admit that they do it under civilian buildings. They'll write it in the obituaries of their soldiers. But I guess that's like, it's like a concept I call Western or like leftist Orientalism. It's this idea that you're not really
okay. That's actually, I'm glad he's addressing this.
treating Arabs as real people when you feel like you have to do this whitewashing of their own actions, where you feel like you see like a Palestinian group like Hamas doing a thing, basically everyone agreeing they do a thing in terms of like investigations, them saying they do this thing, but you're just like, no, that's not true. Like, you're not really treating them like real people when you do that.
Like the idea of like denying that like Hamas would do rapes or whatever because like they're willing to kill but they wouldn't do rapes. It's silly. Also, I'm misunderstanding what he's saying, but it seems like that would be in the same vein where it's like, well, yeah, you're gonna use any method that you would use at your that you're able to use because that's just what you would do, right? Oh shit! Didn't mean to go down.
I guess the last thing is like Trump is president, going to be president. I personally think that is going to be a disaster for the Palestinians, unfortunately. And it seems like he actually got a lot of Arab vote in America.
Oh, this is what I think one of y'all in chat asked about or wanted to see about. So I'm glad that is brought up.
I think he got the majority of Arab men voting for him. I think they were hoping that he would.
Okay, I don't know if it was the majority, but I know a lot of those stats were. Goddamn, this fucking gnat. Get it next time it comes close. But it's like a lot of like the polling or what? Not the polling, but the ways that it was like their gains. So I think that he did probably have a big like gain in Muslim people, but I don't know if that was actually more like objectively.
He would lead differently, but from where I can see, that does not seem to be. It seems to be the opposite, frankly. I don't know what you see.
With Trump, I mean, Trump is so good at being able to. He's so good at being able to just make everyone happy. Almost when it comes to foreign policy, he somehow manages to do this thing where he is at the exact same time a hawk and an isolationist.
Yeah, he's a hawk and a dove on the same. He's like a chimera.
On one minute, he'll talk about how we don't need NATO and we don't want these endless wars and we don't want to spend American arms on other countries. On the other hand, he's talking about how we're going to kick the crap out of ISIS and we're going to send troops in there or we're going to bomb Soleimani or like. So he's got a very strange attitude to that. And I think, honestly, his actions tend to just depend on who triggered him the day before or who cozied up to him or complimented him enough the day before. He's very good at filling all the gaps. I think the advertising that they were doing in Dearborn was basically, I think they were just very cynically.
Wait. I meant to look this up before, but I don't remember if I was able to find it. Dearborn, Michigan, Trump ads. Let's see if I could spell everything wrong there. Wait, no, this is the Kamala Harris one. I wanted the Trump ones. Supports Arab Muslims voted campaign stop. Am I not looking up the right thing? This is Kamala Harris's YouTube channel, so I assume this is not what I'm looking for. Let's look at this.
The Arab American vote is also putting Michigan in the national spotlight. Dearborn, home to the largest Arab and Muslim American population in the U.S.
For Arabs, Muslims, and our Jewish families in Metro Detroit, it's been a tough time.
The lighting on this is holy shit. Okay, hold on. Actually, I don't think the lighting's that bad. I think they just have like shit cameras.
With so many of their loved ones overseas caught in the crossfire of a widening war in the Middle East. We have updates on the conflict coming up.
But
well, they also probably shouldn't have white backgrounds like that. But
first, let's send it over to 7 News Detroit reporter Tiara Braddock in Dearborn.
Former President Donald.
Oh, never mind. This is what I was looking for. Where are the ads? Trump wins largest Arab city in Dearborn. I'm scared.
At this Arab Americans for Trump election night watch party,
there's like 5 people there. What the fuck?
Erupted in cheers at Donald Trump's win. This would have been unthinkable in Trump's last 2 elections. Michigan's Arab population, the largest in the nation, had thoroughly rejected Trump. This time, he earned about 43% of Michigan's Arab voters, compared to about 38% for Kamala Harris. And voters told us why.
Because it's good for America, bro.
It's good for America, bro. Do you see bro? Or did I just
told us
put that in because it'd be funny?
Because it's good for America, bro.
Those who say, well, he has said some things and done some things that could be perceived as anti-Muslim. Does that resonate with you?
What the fuck just happened? Sonic just run
said some
past?
things and done some things that could be perceived as anti-Muslim.
This is the guy in the background. If you guys aren't watching, the reason why I'm repeating that is because in the background, if you guys are just listening, in the background, there's like a kid that looks like on the back of another kid, and they're just like rolling through randomly in the background. The wow noise.
Some things and done some things that could be perceived as anti-Muslim. Does that resonate with you?
It was like comical.
Doubts at all?
No, it's fine, buddy, like that. It's fine. I like the guys. I think you're doing better here. Belize's life is too hard right now.
I love. Did they forget the Muslim ban?
Now it's go for business for.
Remember when literally in Trump's first like I don't know 3. When did he do that? It was like really soon in like 2017. Like early in the year, I feel like. Where he literally did the Muslim ban. Which also did ban American people. Like, God, short-term memory, dude, huh?
For economy, for everything, bro.
I just want this world to go back to the way it was 4 years ago. It's just way too chaotic right now and crazy.
Last question. There are those who say that Jill Stein is more pro-Palestinian.
You want it to go back to when COVID was like... Wait, it's chaotic now? Bitch, what are you talking about? Okay. That's what I'm saying, chicken.
I know, but trust me, if there was any chance that she could win, I would vote for her. But you got to go with the facts, you know?
Then why don't you just vote for her? Nobody knows who you vote for. If there was any chance of her winning, I would vote for her. That is like the dumbest logic I've ever heard. I voted for Trump because I didn't think that she could win. So I voted for the opposition. Who cares? Just don't vote at all.
The Arab Americans been suffering because Biden
Really?
has policy over the Middle East.
Yeah, you know what? Instead of having the Arab Americans suffer because of the policy of the Middle East, let's have it suffer for the policies in America. Let's bring that back. Bring back the fucking Muslim ban. Remember what happened in 2017, motherfucker? Jesus Christ! No, she said that she voted for Trump. All right, let's move on.
They were doing in Dearborn was basically, I think they were just very cynically targeting multiple groups at once with different messaging. So in areas where they had Jewish communities, they would target them with advertisements saying that Trump's going to be pro like Israel. He's not going to hold Israel back. He's going to let them do the job.
Which is the most truthful ad probably of all time when it
And
comes to
finish
Trump.
the war. And Kamala Harris is a Hamas person, or Biden's a Palestinian, and Ilhan Omar is like a Muslim. You know, fuck those people. But then on the other end, he'll go to Dearborn and have signs talking about, I think it was like Holocaust Harris, or was it Genocide Joe? I can't remember. I think his crowd chanted Genocide Joe once, and he just basked in it because, well, this sounds good for the moment.
Hold on. Well, I want to see this. Dearborn, Michigan. Genocide. I can't spell any of the words that I just typed. Opted out from Democratic Party for president during Michigan visit.
Police keeping pro-Palestinian activists far away from President Joe Biden. Tense moments and police in full riot gear move in. Their anger, frustration, and disappointment.
This is 9 months ago. I don't know if this is what they're talking about, or is it? I don't know. You said on a Trump visit? I guess we may have to add the Trump part of this. Because he's talking about specifically related to Trump. To kill press acts that would... Oh, this is just how our world is spiraling into... I saw something that Elon wants to buy MSNBC? Angry about... Wait, hold on. Give me this?
Democrats hemorrhaged votes earlier this year when pro-Palestinian protesters took over college campuses across the US. Angry at Joe Biden's policy on Gaza.
In Telegram. Oh, I don't think this is what I was looking for. Oh, I think this is what I was looking for. Oh my god. It's all in my right ear, the audio. Oh, not so my loud.
Freedom of speech, untainted by censorship from social media giants. These platforms.
Male rights is going to literally ruin our country. 25% tariffs on our 3 biggest importers, which means everything's going to go up, motherfucker. So you better buy your shit now, dude.
Should serve as the public spaces, allowing us to reveal the truths and shine the lights of the injustices around the world. As we approach the next election, let us be clear the outcome.
All right, new rule. Anytime male rights spells my name wrong, let's just ban him for a day. To give you the satisfaction, chicken, I'll let you do it.
Reflect the ineffective policies and leadership that have put us all at risk.
Okay, I don't think I'm going to find what I was looking for, or what they're describing at least.
Doesn't matter that it's completely
All right,
contradictory.
put this.
Was it Genocide Joe? I can't remember. I think his crowd chanted Genocide Joe once, and he just basked in it because, well,
You are a retard if you don't understand that we don't make everything in America.
this sounds good for the moment. Doesn't matter that it's completely contradictory to everything I believe. Who did Trump appoint again for ambassador to Israel?
Here, you know, I'll do it.
Huckabee, yeah.
Banning it for a day. He's got to learn how to spell my name right.
A guy who, most Israelis, by the way, they don't say, oh, we're God's chosen people and the West Bank is Judea, Samaria, and all that. Like, most of them don't really say it in that way. Most Israelis are secular. That guy is like, actually, I think Trump's entire cabinet is like, they're probably more extreme Zionists than most Israelis are.
I think
like
you're
those
right.
people.
I think you're right.
And what happened with Trump last time? You know, he cut funding from the Palestinian Authority. He recognized the Golan Heights. He moved the embassy to
Good question, Avocado.
Jerusalem, which was an incredible trigger point against Hamas. That's like one of the biggest insults you can do for Palestinians is like fucking about with the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And didn't a bunch of settlers build a complex in the Golan? They called it Trump Heights.
Yes.
So,
wow.
Yeah,
Trump Heights.
He's
he loves that.
Yeah, we looked at this the other day. This is why I don't understand why people don't understand. Like, don't. I guess because it's like it's not talked about enough. It's like Trump is an insane Zionist too. I don't think like ideologically he is the same way that Biden was, but it's because Trump doesn't believe in anything. Like Trump basically will agree with Nazis, but I wouldn't say he's a Nazi because he's completely ideologically like bankrupt in the same way that he basically has the exact same, like it doesn't really matter, right? Like it doesn't really matter what his point is. Like who he is as a person doesn't matter in this. The point being what he does is he's incredibly pro-Zionist. Don't use Zionist as a slur. Nobody uses Zionist as a slur. Oh, because you can't do it on Twitch. Is that what you're saying? I get what you're saying. Again, I wasn't using it as a slur, obviously, but the thing is, like, Trump is not an ideological Zionist by any means, but he is clearly a tool for Zionists to use. The hard Z, oh my god, the hard Z? Yikes.
I mean, that's the thing is like, even if you don't like what the Democrats did,
Don't actually. I know you're saying that as a joke, chicken, but don't actually start saying that because the calling people Z's is actually an anti-Semitic trope.
or what Biden
Oh yeah, hold on. There it is.
did, I think he could have done more. It could always be worse. It could be a lot worse. And I think, unfortunately, with Israel, we're going to see worse with Trump and Netanyahu combined.
Oh yeah, here it is. Trump Heights. That's it. That's all you need. We just need a Palestinian city called Trump Village, and then he's gonna switch sides.
The Trump Mosque, yeah.
Trump Mosque, yeah. Trump Heights. Wow.
Oh, why did I look it up? But could I just waited?
Yeah,
So you
what?
know, I
Sorry.
wasn't a pre-watch, Andy. Literally started stream like 30 minutes before this. In like the stream, or probably like an hour before this in the conversation.
Say yeah, me and my wife we're from Dearborn, and yeah, definitely a lot of people back home would not vote for Harris, and some of them obviously they were going towards Trump, and I think me personally I would vote for Harris just because of other people, because of women's rights and stuff along those lines, but as an Arab, the way we looked at it, for the most part, my understanding is that we feel like no one gives a shit, no one cares. Biden stood idly by. She's gonna stand idly by. At least maybe with Trump, there might.
Oh, he's gonna get so much shit for this. I don't think he deserves it at all. But I know AB's gonna get a lot of shit for this.
Be a chance of something being done.
I think they thought that their vote for Trump would protest it's like a protest of the genocide.
or not voting at all.
Yeah.
As a way of protesting.
Unfortunately, it is very disappointing that Dearborn voted for him.
Yeah.
And this is like the first time in 30 years, I think, that Dearborn voted Republican. So yeah, the genocide was like a huge issue for them in this election.
The thing is, like, I totally.
And again, a lot of that is really the real failure there. I think is in Democratic messaging. Because let's be real, Trump would be way worse.
I understand their perspective, right, of the protest vote and just feeling like hopeless and just not knowing what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally get where they're coming from. You know what I mean? I just hope that.
When it's bombing schools and hospitals, killing children, claiming Ukrainian did weapon there, but they don't. Well, it's kind of one of those things, right? Like, they're going to lie about you anyways. So, like, if you're talking about like, the Palestinian people are, like, in a completely more desperate situation, like, they don't really give a shit, right? Like they don't have anywhere to do, like, a counter information war. They don't have anything, you know? So it's like, if they're going to lie about, like, they're going to say that anyways. Fuck it, might as well do it. Who cares? I'm not saying that's their ideology. I'm just saying, like, that makes sense. Just, like, from, like, a outside perspective, it's like, well, if they're gonna say that you do all these bad things, might as well do it anyways. Not that, again, they're even thinking that. It's just like, who cares?
No, you're right. It probably is going to be
I just
worse.
hope. I mean, all we can do is hope that it's not going to be more terrible than it already is.
Well, Trump is very good at exploiting people's hopelessness or emotions or anything. Yeah, that's his entire thing.
Well, yeah, he said he wanted to do flying cars.
Yeah.
Democracy. Last question.
All right,
American
I'm gonna pause.
democracy. 4 more years?
What, do you think we got 4 more years of American democracy?
I mean, a lot of people think that. I mean, there's a lot of people that think it's that serious, I'd say.
I don't know, Ethan, the guardrails, you know? It doesn't matter that Trump wants to end democracy or like will disrespect any election that he doesn't win. It's the guardrail. No, yeah, it's really, I think America has enough of a safety net that it won't allow
Mike Hope. Let's go. Fingers crossed on that one.
Trump to do that.
What are you, a liberal?
But at the end of the day, America's only as like any country is only as good as the people who run it or the people who are in it.
Bro.
And if Trump
Hey guys, we can do a January 6th.
can say all those things and he can do January 6th and he still doesn't concede the last election and he can win the popular vote. Like maybe Americans don't want democracy.
I
right?
agree. This
Maybe
is
they
what
don't
they
care.
wanted.
Fair enough.
This is what we wanted. I mean, the popular fucking vote. What do you say to that?
I mean, it's telling me on I didn't think I could be more of a fan of Lonerbox.
But
Yeah, I need to get the
my
fuck out
ho-
of that country. Yeah, that was, yeah.
my only hope with Trump is that because he's so old that he just fucking dies.
And you get President. Whoa, why is my frame rate dying? We get President JD Vance. I would just kill myself, I think. Like, just because it would be so cringe, I don't think I could literally survive. I think I would have like a stroke. I think I would literally have a stroke if we had President JD Vance, just because it would be so cringe. I don't know if you guys saw on Discord, I want to make a rumor that that kid from Jurassic Park is JD Vance when he was a kid.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate.
Yeah, because he's
that,
old. Obviously, right, Dan?
Much more competent. I mean, not really. He's just I mean, again, when you go to the presidency, you really don't have to be competent. It's about who you surround yourself with. Which, again, if Trump's gonna surround himself with literally all TV personalities, it's just gonna be a shit show. I mean, that's like the cope. That's the razor cope, right? The razor cope is like they're gonna be so incompetent they can't get anything done. They literally, there was a joke that I don't remember where I heard it from, but it was like he's gonna elect Judge Judy as like an AG or whatever, and it's like, well, it wouldn't be out of the question. Like Dr. Oz as like the head of the CDC or whatever. Come on, like the incompetence level is amazing. Yeah, and Vance is so unlikable. Like, imagine being really excited. Like, Trump doesn't even like hanging out with Vance. Trump hangs out with Elon more than he hangs out with Vance. You know what's my really weird prediction? I bet one of Elon's kids gonna kill him. And it's not gonna be the trans one. I think it's just gonna be one of like the random ones you don't think about. I'm not saying it's gonna happen anytime soon. It's just like a really random prediction. Anyone else want to have a random prediction? Like a really wild thing that would happen? Or JD Vance is an et tu brute, or Elon does an et tu brute, or he's the brute in this situation, I guess. You were going to have a beautiful wedding? Oh. Well, my alcohol prices might go up. Oh my god. All of my Mexican friends might get deported. They're not illegal, but who knows? I don't think they're gonna determine. Jesus fuck. We're so cooked. All we can do is have fun with it, right?
Yes.
And I think we're very fortunate that a lot of his successors are kind of inept. Like they don't really.
Oh, well. He's also subscribing to the Razor ideology. I clearly cannot pre-watch because I have been streaming during this. That's my hope too. We pray to the god of ineptness that they're never gonna be able to, you know, go full Nazi or whatever.
Really have the same
They don't have,
flair that he does.
Right.
That's probably a good thing.
Nothing. Tequila the knitted shirt.
I think Vivek's not replacing Trump. DeSantis, no. What, like Trump Jr.?
Fuck that.
Honestly, Trump Jr. might be, maybe if they can sell it like on a dynasty.
No
maybe
shot. He's
they can
such a
get Trump
creep.
in.
I don't see it.
He's not charismatic
'cause
at
Trump's
all.
definitely not a creep, eh? Like,
No, but he.
Yeah, like Donald Trump Jr. is not charismatic at all. Like, I think that's why they tried to sell Barron, because Barron's like 7 feet tall or whatever. But I bet he's like a fucking weirdo. I've never seen Baron Trump talk, and I feel like weird about it because he's like 18. Like I feel like it's like weird to shit on him. Already, but like, ugh.
He has swag, where
he does have swag.
Trump Jr. is just a whiny bitch, fucking cocaine addict.
I mean, Trump is a big fat man who eats a lot of McDonald's.
Is he on the
so-
spectrum? I mean, who isn't?
Opposite.
He's like an XQC fan, so he's probably addicted to gambling.
Does cocaine, one does McDonald's.
Yeah, it's I don't know. That is probably, as far as like the future and just like any democracy, it's just the fact that disinformation and like just alternate realities can have that much of an effect on the population now. That's quite a scary thing looking forward.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So everybody, that's our time.
Oh
Thank you for
my
calling in. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who
God.
participated. Lena and AB and Olivia, I appreciate the conversation we had. And thanks for calling in. Guys, if you want to, he's Lonerbox on YouTube. Is there anything else to say that you want to plug? I mean, it's Lonerbox.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, either Lonerbox or Lonerbox Live is where I do most of my content now on live streams. You can see me on Twitter if you want to see me fighting with people. But
How often do you go
Yeah.
live these days?
pretty much every day, maybe 6 days a week.
Yeah, he's
So Lonerbox
always
Live.
streaming.
Cool.
If you fucks in my chat, if I somehow am able to figure out that you are not subscribed, or not subscribed, as in not like you have to like send money, but just subscribed to Bonerbox here, I will disown you. So you motherfuckers better do it. Like if I've ever found out that any of you guys weren't subscribed to at least one of Dylan Burns' channels, I'd be very disappointed. Now we love Loner.
Very good.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, you guys.
Thank
Nice
you. I
meeting all of
appreciate you calling in. Have a good evening. I know it's late there. Enjoy
And yourselves.
sleeping.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm curious how they're gonna.
Excuse me.
Jesus, he's like dying.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I like that we could talk. We had like a pretty, I don't know. I know a lot of people probably disagree with his.
I saw that chat and it seemed like really positive on this. Is this going to go live and they talk about stuff?
All right. Listen, so tomorrow we're filming.
Oh, they did just end it right after. Okay. Oh, I haven't been well. Okay, so the reason why they named this I haven't been well, by the way, is because I guess Hassan, this might be a little bit of a partnership to this, but also a way to end, because I think that we're kind of going towards the end of the stream here. Because I think this was a fun one.
I can point to a terrorist attack that Hila Klein has participated in.
I have an official blockade on bad empanada videos on this broadcast while I'm live. That's number one. And number two, he's not just mean on Twitter. He is a psychopath, okay? The idea that he's just simply mean on Twitter is ridiculous.
So the reason why Ethan said that he is unwell is because Hassan had somebody on that said he was unwell, and I'm pretty sure what he's talking about is the bad empanada shit. So I assume it's this video that I just lost. Hello? I just gotta keep this. I want this to be my desktop background. How cooked we are. So we'll have Japan will be better, I guess. As a Japanese person,
Ridiculous. He is not just mean on Twitter. He is the most insane person on Twitter. No. Okay? I would, however, use a much better example.
He's watching
which
more
is the
Bad
one I used.
Empanada? Or is this a
that's my question. Is this old?
Willie Mac video reacting to Bad Empanada?
What China did in that circumstance was not dissimilar to the Civil War, I guess. Yeah, black soldiers in the Union during the Civil War.
What is happening? All right, I'm speaking this though. We don't have all day here. I
The
just
other way
assume
around?
this is
Bad
related
Empanada
to
video
it.
covering a Willie Mac video? It's insane how
with
Bad Empanada is
3
not
level-
officially a good guy in the sphere. Yeah. Jesus.
In what way does China do Hanification and China create autonomous zones that sustain the teaching of Tibetan language and culture aside from religious areas? Come on, dude. Like, this is a thing that China does all the time. It's a way to basically control what aspect of the culture is presented. It's the same thing in Xinjiang as well. It's the effectively. So we punish Cuba and the Cuban population permanently since that very moment, and we've never stopped. Whereas what these guys are doing a good thing, okay? That's it.
Okay, I think this is gonna be a little bit too messy. I think we should just end on, that was a fun video that we watched. I think that Lonerbox looked great. This seems like we're getting into a new thing. I thought it was gonna be related to it directly, but this isn't as clear as I was expecting it to. Does anyone have anyone to host? I think that we should just keep it short and tight on this one. And by short, I mean it's been 3.5 hours. I guess it's kind of short for one of these streams. I think it was a good, tight, fun stream on this. He's not just no, he's literally in. Oh, it's Dylan Burns. Yeah, let's go. That's a perfect thing, or a perfect thing to have Dylan as the outro here, because we're hoping to see a Dylan Burns on the H3. So let's go ahead and raid into Dylan and give him all the love. And not sure, he's probably watching the same thing, but whatever. But yes, let's do that. All right. I am 50-50 on streaming tomorrow, so I'm not sure if I'm going to. So you'll have to find out. But this was a lot of fun today. I'm really glad that we got this great content today with the Lonerbox. Hope you guys all follow Lonerbox as well, and give Dylan Burns also some love. Thank you all for being here, and we will maybe see you tomorrow. But if we don't see you tomorrow, we'll see you Wednesday. But we're probably going to take the weekend off. We'll see. Thank you all for being here. You guys are great, and we'll see you then.